click, buy, deliver with remote purchasing from the two-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing. I was going to say episode, but we're not actually doing episodes because we're on a special tour, and we're over in Northern Ireland. We're joined by the most successful world superbike rider of all time, MBE and now OBE, 6 times world champion. Welcome to the podcast, Jonathan. How's it going?
Oh, thanks for having me on. Been a very big fan of the show. Listen to it quite regularly on my trips up and down the road to Dublin when I need to pass sometimes. So it's equally cool to be on, especially in this little booth
pod.
you've got. I'm pretty damn impressed because I only listen to the podcast. I don't watch it. So to actually see this is fair play, guys.
There we go. I tell you what, I'd like to clear something up for our audience. We did not pay him to say that. I would like to just tidy that up straight away. That was I'm going to tear up a little bit here.
We've just been out for I would say one of the poshest brunches I've ever had, but
Really?
a lovely little town. Is it Antrim?
Antrim, yeah, posh brunch in Antrim, eh? Who would have thought? But it was nice, yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I think an Aussie bloke came over and bought this cafe and turned it into like a bit of a coffee culture in Australia is like massive. My wife's Aussie, so spend a bit of time out there, and he came over, turned it into, instead of your £6 12 item fry, it's a sourdough this and halloumi cheese this. It's
bit posh.
Now there's a culture shock, mind. Australia to Antrim.
It was for her too. I'm still trying to sell her the dream.
Yeah, because you did live in the Isle of Man for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, and I loved it. I really loved it because my father was a road racer. For those that don't know, so I grew up around bikes, and Isle of Man TT was, unlike most British kids to the south of Cornwall or wherever, or if you're lucky enough go to Tenerife for your holidays, I went to Isle of Man or Northwest 200, and I loved it. Lived and breathed fumes, and watched. My dad had I wouldn't say they were helpers, mechanics, and I used to just annoy them because I would take wheels off them and they would give me wheels to clean and stuff, and I wasn't just polishing the wheels, I was polishing tires and all sorts. So God bless my dad.
Yeah,
but it's funny how you remember all them stories. So actually going to the Isle of Man was a cool story, and I've got really good friends there. My teammate at the time when I went there was Andrew Pitt, World Super Sport champ, and he lived in Peel, and I went over and lived in Castletown.
Ah, lovely. I remember we were just chatting before the pod, and I was saying I listened to your autobiography, it must have been a pretty while ago on Audible, and so there's loads of little bits that I sort of half remember, but but I do remember you were saying, was it your father used to sponsor Joy Dunlop?
My grandfather,
and it's very much around here. There's families that are really big in bike racing, obviously. And we're just saying with Jeremy, it's such a small place, but it's packed with names, isn't it?
Yeah, it is strange because most of the kids from around here are decent, at bikes. You look down the British Championship grid, you've the Irwins are doing very well at superbike level. You had Alistair Seeley from here that killed it in super sport and super stock for years. Jack Kennedy, okay, he's from the south, but still Irish lad. He's very fast, and I don't know what it is. I think, growing up, I was so lucky that my dad was from a racing background. So he knew I grew up schoolboy motocrossing and pretty quickly won all there was to win in Northern Ireland. And you go with competition. So when I was 10 years old, we were jumping on the boat, that Cairn Ryan or Stranraer boat, every weekend, every Friday he'd finish work. I've got 2 kids now, and I look back and think what my dad did, the sacrifices he made. He'd work Monday to Friday, working man, in transport, driving lorries, and it was his, his dad's company, to take me. I mean, we would drive the length and breadth of the UK, to get to race against fast riders, and that was super cool. So I think that, that from a young age you realize there's a sacrifice. It's not like you go and you have a bad day at Foxhill and or Mallory Park at road racing, and you drive them 2.5, 3 hours home, and it's all right. If you had a bad weekend, you were having the silent treatment the whole way to the boat up that A75, and it was horrible. So
really?
every race was was impactful. You knew there was a big sacrifice. You needed to do well out of it, because if you weren't going to do good, there's no such a big sacrifice. I have 2 other brothers and a sister, so if it wasn't going to work out, it wasn't worth it. You know.
I was just thinking that, like, we think we're like miles away from most of the BSB tracks, just being in the northeast, so it's like a few hours extra. But the commitment for every BSB round or motocross or whatever, but to come right across on the ferry, it's like almost another day onto the weekend and another day on the way back. It like race weekends become like almost a week.
Yeah, there's I think it's a 4:15 boat from Cairn Ryan used to go into Larne, my old hometown. And you could make the 4:15 boat in the morning from Thruxton if you were like full gas. And I remember taking my little trusty 206 over there to do, superbike when I first went to superbike. And then I stayed when I rode for Honda, I did a year renting a house in Louth with a few of the mechanics. The year before that, I sort of just sofa surfed like every up and coming kid does. Put everything. I was on a sofa of Craig Jones, my trainer at the time, mechanics in Louth, annoying them, and it was. But that was cool days as well. Looking back on it, that was pretty cool. So it was. Yeah, it's hard when you get going, but I stuck at it, and it's been good after that.
Mm-hmm.
But even going back to the family side of things, did your siblings race? So you got 2 older younger brothers? Did you say?
I've got 2 younger brothers. They're both much bigger than me, big lads. And the youngest is my sister. She's 20. I want to say it's her birthday. Thursday, I think.
I'm about to say it today because we're going to be in serious trouble, Chrissy, if we've nicked her.
In her 20s.
Very, very, very lucky. Her boyfriend's whipped her off to Dubai. They've only been together like a year. Flip me. Took me like years to get my wife to Dubai.
So what's the big brother advice for your sister at the moment? Marry him. Just if he's got money for Dubai,
I don't know.
Marry him.
I don't know. Just be happy.
Be happy.
But yeah, so the 2 brothers, of course, I feel so being the first child, I got a lot of the attention. My dad actually fell out of love with motocross. He told me in the end that if you want to go motocross and you do it yourself, on this stage, I had a helper mechanic that would come with us, a guy Gareth Crichton. He's now got a young kid motocross, and it was him that said, after a year of trying to do it together, he said, listen, this Red Bull Rookies program's going, and they're looking for young riders. You should really do this, because if it doesn't pay off, it was at a point where I don't come from heaps of money, the real middle class family. Dad, mum worked. Dad was he's in transport. Mum was like a school dinner lady. Like a chef, and then she worked in Dad's company. So it got to the point in motocross, all these kids were being homeschooled that I was racing against, because I'd won British championships and would fight for podiums most weekends going away, and then you're thinking, these kids have got like 6 bikes, they've got practice bikes coming out their ears. We were like taking on all this commitment to go over there. They were going to the US to do pre-season. My dad used to keep saying to him, Dad, I need to practice in the wet. Not practicing in the wet, but I know why he said it. Now I've got kids. I don't want to wash bikes. You know what I mean? It was one of that sort of hunger, to go there, and probably a little bit of a chip in your shoulder, to go and try and do well.
Mm.
But the other brothers, I think they got not equal opportunities, but got opportunities to ride bikes. My younger brother Richard, talented lad, but every time he rode a motocross bike, he just got hurt, like madly hurt. Mm. He actually did bit of superstock racing, British superstock racing. I think he went from having a quad to wanting to race motocross. Then he wanted a horse. So my uncle had stables, and my uncle ended up helping him out with a horse. Had a glass eye called Flash. It was great. Coming from motocross background, all I wanted to do was ride Flash as fast as I could, see how fast I could go and how big we could make the jumps. And then, yes, he did superstock, and he was talented, big lad, and he asked me for a bit of help, and he was can't remember how many kilos he was, but he must be pushing on 17, 18 stone. I said, Richard, it's an expensive sport. If no one's going to take you serious, you need to lose a bit of bark. So what weight do you need to get to? I said, well, if you get to 14 stone, I'll start taking it a bit serious. And he got to 14 stone in an off season. Like, I think, and he's
the same height as you.
No, he's big. He's probably 6 foot. I don't know. I'm the only dark-haired, short kid in my family. So
Postman.
No idea. Strange one. They're all blonde and really tall. So
a local Viking came round.
Richard's got a great story, because he actually, I remember going over to like Knockhill to a British Superstock race with him and Scottish Championship, and he was super fast. I think he won a Scottish Championship race. In fact, I was wagging him on that hard on the proper schoolboy dad, me up over the pit wall. I just wanted a motocross pit board, so I could write something on it instead of just putting numbers. And I remember I was wagging him on, and he had a horrible crash at Knockhill and broke a leg, I think. I think it was T1. Quite fit. I had a big one there at T1 myself in 04. And so he stopped. He's now in transport. But the younger sibling again, Christopher, he's 20, I want to say 26. Mm-hmm. He's always motocrossed, always had bit of bikes, but never really, and decent, but never really took it on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fair enough. I do just want to give a quick shout out. I just thought about that before. It was actually Steve Brogan who kind of asked, I think he asked you to come on Chasing the Racing, and that's kind of like how this ended up happening. And I seen this week Steve's is setting another team back up in BSB.
Oh, brilliant.
And so he's got 2 Kawasaki, I think it'll be the 636 for Superstock 600. And it'll be a great opportunity for anyone. If anyone's out there that's looking to do Stock 600 but maybe like bad themselves, it might be a good idea to get in touch with. So if you go on Steve's Facebook or whatever, he's got his contact details on there. But obviously a real good friend of yours and
legend.
Yeah, I've worked with
Legends, Brogy.
Now, a smile like that only comes with good stories. Now, come on, what's your best story of Brogy?
Best story with Brogy. We don't really get stories with Brogy because we both enjoy a beer, but after like 2 shandies, he's sleeping. He's a real not a light. Yeah, you think for a big bloke.
Hold on, you think a Scouse bloke? Period.
And bless him, bro. I love Brogy. He's
but he can't drink
salt of the earth, and like with his he's thrown himself into his coaching like 100%. And I think now with I came from a motorbike background, and it was funny. I got selected to be in a road race team, and part of that selection was Jeremy McWilliams, Leon Haslam, Robin Appleyard, and marketing people from the sponsor. And Jeremy actually called my dad up and says, "Listen, the best advice I can tell you is just let him go." And I was 16, just let him do his own thing. Don't get involved. And away I went. And I think my dad knowing all the pitfalls of bikes, that must have been so hard. Not to want to be involved. And my dad, I don't think we've spoke about bikes at all. Like, we don't speak about bikes or
even
what's
to this
happening.
day.
He wouldn't ring me up after a race and say, "Oh, what about the front end? It didn't look great here or that." We just don't speak. Conversation with my dad away is like, "All right, Dad. Yep. You. Yep. All right. See you in a bit." Really?
So from
we're close. So I think that advice was good, but I think so many kids now are starting bikes with zero knowledge, zero coaching, and you see to actually. If you could go and have I had Robin Appleyard, who was a saviour. He was like a GP 2-stroke guru. He would,
right.
My first year racing taught me how to build gearboxes in my head, and I could set a bike up. Within pretty much 8 months of road racing, I was on the podium at a British Championship race at Brunch. And it was just because I had really good influence around me. And Steve reminds me of that guy. He's like a fast tracker. You know what I mean? Because he's got so much knowledge of doing things really good, but doing things wrong as well. You try and avoid people getting a shortcut to the top. So
yeah,
that's cool that he's going to do something with young kids, because it's didn't work out the last time with some sponsor reasons when he had a super stock team that was really successful as well.
And so going back to, you were 16, you were riding motocross. The chance came up to jump across to superbikes. At that point, if you like in your headspace, was your heart always into going to the roads eventually, or did you really want to like go to America and do sort of motocross?
Yeah, but that was a pipe dream that would never happen. America, US supercross was like bright lights, but how could you get there? You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember reading somewhere. Now I've drank a lot of beer since then, mine, so I've probably just got it totally mumbled up. But I think you quoted, and I've been wrong many a time, but it was like you were a failed motocrosser in your eyes, or something.
No, I joked
something
about
along those
that.
lines.
Me and
is that a joke? Thank God that was a joke.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much not failed, but
yeah,
I never had much opportunity. I quit before I went like adult racing. So my last year was 02. And back then there was a KWS series that was like the international series. I ran alongside the ACU British Championship. I was fourth in that. on my first year in a 125, and then got to the end of that year, and like I'd said before, Dad was not really that interested in just business commitments. You know, he was interested, but he just didn't have time.
Yes, aye.
So, you know, Gareth and I were starting to piece something together. Then there was this thing, this audition, if you like. But in the background, I was still piecing together, going motocrossing to, you know, to a team, trying to find 15,000 quid to go and race adult British Championship with the Yamaha team.
Was that a Yamaha ride then? Like
no, it was like
a privateer of Yamaha?
It was it's from a guy from here trying to source into one of the official Yamaha adult teams.
Right.
Back then, if there was another, so do you know how there's this opportunity with Red Bull for the road race, and if there was a similar opportunity to, like, say, go to America, would you have preferred to have
Motocross?
Yeah.
Don't know.
Not knowing what you know now at that exact point.
Don't know. So I tell you the predicament I was in. It was like I did a run so I got selected. My CV got selected to go to they whittled it down to 20 kids to go to Rockingham to an audition. So my dad was like, "Fuck, what we're going to do?" He's never rode a bike before. So I went to Ron Haslam Race School and rode a CB 500. I didn't really light any fires. All I wanted to do was get my knee down. Like every guy that's never rode a bike just wants to get their knee down.
I'm still waiting on that dream, to be fair. Like, I'm still dreaming for it, mate.
So and it never really lit the fire. You know, it was good, and then so we went to Rockingham. I borrowed Alan Patterson's 125, my dad's old leathers and boots, and he's a size 8 UK. I'm a 10. My feet were killing me. These old Style Martin things. And, you know, I got a new red RI helmet, so I stuck out like a sore thumb because my leathers were blowing in the wind. And
there's got to be a photo of this somewhere.
Yeah, there will be. I've got one at the Ron Haslam Race School because I remember going and buying the photos. I want to buy this, so I've got it in a scrapbook somewhere.
You'll have to get a photo of that.
Yeah, the Rockingham thing, it was a damp day, and I thought, wow. My dad gave me some good advice, but I think we had slicks, that's all we had, and set of tyre warmers. I think we had a new set of slicks as well. So it was damp, and I was going out and I was passing loads of kids. I thought, this is mint. And these are like the 20 kids that were getting selected. So I thought, I must be in with half a chance. And then I went out in session 2 and I was flying, completely flying. And I was big. I'm the same size I am now. I was 70 kilos on a 125 and just big lad. And the last session of the day was damp. And I went out and crashed on it, patchy. I was just getting confident and I had a bit of a big crash. So first I was worried about trying to fix the bike for Alan, and then secondly it was that drive up the road. It was like, I've screwed it, you know, it's over. It's already talking to, you know, Gareth back home about this Yamaha deal. And that night they must have made the decision pretty quick, because that night Robin Appleyard called me saying, not that night, it was the next day. I was back in work. I worked for my uncle in an engineering factory, like welding beams and making steel sheds and steelwork. And it was forbidden to be on your phone when you were working. So I always had my phone in my boiler suit, but I could feel it vibrating at the time. It was vibrating. I thought, wow, who's this number? I didn't know. Right. It was Robin Appleyard. He goes, Jonathan, have you got a passport? I was like, why? It's like, because you're coming to Spain in the last 5. So, really? Like, I couldn't believe. I thought it was blowing it, you know, because of crashing. They didn't want to crash her. But I think the fact that I was a real novice that showed a wee bit of potential, they were happy enough. So, not that I cheated my way into this job, but then Alan was like, they're going to test with the last 5 at Cartagena. I was with a kid called Ashley Beach, Daniel Cooper, and just...
Was Tom Tunstall someone? I remember you reading things, and there were all people that I
So
know
Tom
from.
Tunstall, I did another audition test at the end of that year to join the Honda UK like junior team, which became like the Red Bull Rookies program was a 3-rider 125 team. Then after that, because at the end of that, I was panicking. I was massive in a 125. It was clear if I wanted to keep road racing. My dad knew Nick Morgan well. It's like, oh, can you put a bike together? It's like, well, it's going to cost sheets, money we couldn't afford. Mm-hmm. So I was calling my friend, a really good friend of mine. I mention her a lot in my autobiography, Linda Pelham. She was the marketing girl at Red Bull. The girl I have to thank for my career, because she just said, listen, be patient, please. I'm trying to do another thing to further this rookie thing and join with Honda to make a junior team, which sort of Eugene Laverty went through, myself, Stephen Neate, who else? And I think when me and Eugene both had World Championship rides, I had a factory Honda ride in BSB, and he went to GPs. They stopped it because it was like, okay, it's done, the job's done. She kept saying, no, just wait, I'm going to do we're going to get 4 riders together, and I've really, Neil Tuxworth doesn't believe you're good enough, but I've really got you a shot to go. And there's me, I think Tunstall, Crutchlow, Kieran Clark, I don't want to say another guy. Daniel, somebody that used to ride for Padgett's. Daniel Coots, maybe a 125.
I'm not too sure.
Daniel Coots is a motocross kid I race with. No, Daniel. It's a Daniel.
It'll come back. It was definitely a Daniel.
Fast Daniel.
A very fast Daniel.
So yeah, I went to that, and again, I knew how to play the game a wee bit, put the mechanics on side, and I went out, and it was another horrible day at Cadwell, like leaves in the Hall Bend section and stuff.
They don't make it easy.
No, so I think we only did the park section, and then you came down before the mountain, you turned right and went on, and I struck a good relationship with Chris Pike and Tommy Larson, the 2 crew chiefs, and quite a bit of banter. Got on well with. It was a lot more about being marketing and correct, and the Roger Burnett and his marketing company were down and putting you through a bit of media training or whatever. And yeah, I got that. Couldn't believe that. After, because I pretty much thought, so I got fast tracked into it, and it's sad because I got so lucky. That my parents never, I'm fortunate, I guess, that it didn't cost me too much money to do that. It was I got to learn on somebody else's paycheck, because, when I did it with my brother, we did it together as a family. My dad was doing it, and he would crash, and you think, no way, that's straight away you're adding up, there's $3,000 there, and swing arm and wheels, and it's expensive. So, but it's so fortunate to be able to do that learning part of my career with good teams, and have good, like I said before, with Robin around, and then straight to the Honda UK team when you had, Chris Pike, who worked for Colin Edwards in his championship winning year as a data guy, or Aaron Schleight, if you like. And your peers are guys like Michael Rudder and Ryuichi Kiyanari in your second year of racing, Carl Harris.
Seriously,
all household names of British championships. You grow up fast and you learn a lot really quickly.
When you went to Cadwell, was it just you by yourself? Your dad wasn't alongside you there?
No, it was Linda picked me up. Linda from Red Bull picked me up from the airport and took me there, yeah. And
that was that your first time on a flight? Totally daft. No, you're going back and forth to the Isle of Man at this point, weren't you? So is this your first adventure out the door by yourself, really?
Yeah, but not my first.
Because that must have been daunting.
The 125 thing, I spent 2 weeks in a hotel in Cartagena with Eugene Laverty and somebody else. In fact, there's a hotel that all the motorbike tourists stay at, and I'm sure we had some laugh in there. In fact, bad example, but we thought it was hilarious. And please don't do this, but we got eggs and we're just throwing them out our hotel window for pants. And then we realised we're going to get caught, so we hid these eggs in this sort of suspended ceiling in the hotel room, and I think they're still there, unless the hotel's been demolished. I know.
Can you give us a hotel name? There'll be people lifting them out.
I think it was.
I'd be stinking that.
It's like Hotel Manilo or something like that. It was one of them hotels with like loads of. It was because European culture is quite weird when you go from home straight away, because all the bars have legs of ham and. Really fresh acidic orange juice in the morning. It was quite cool. But yeah, so I did it from an early age, and now my kids are football, and so here's some stories about kids making it in football, and they're out the door at 15, living at another family's house just so they can go to an academy close to somewhere they're selected. Or
it's mad, isn't it?
So it is a big sacrifice, but I was so keen to do it and loved it as well.
Do you reckon it was like, looking back at it, do you think it was better not doing it with your dad? Obviously, you'd want your dad there, but the fact that the crew chiefs and all the team and all the other riders like Rutters and Keogh probably saw just you and you showed your dedication to it. Do you think that was an advantage?
I think from the marketing side and team management side, they prefer to deal with the rider because they have more control. They know that when you leave the guys that go and get changed in the back of their truck, you don't have another dad telling you how it should be done.
Yes.
And that mechanic doesn't know. I mean, I've been with a lot of dads that are quite overbearing in the garage. Not just that, I've had teammates that's wives are overbearing. I've had teammates that, people you see that just, if they would separate that and do it themselves, they'd probably get more from it. But then there's some partnerships that work hand in hand that has them. Ron and Leon, I'm not jealous of that relationship, but it's so nice. It works really well.
And the father-son element.
And I don't think, and Leon probably admit this, I don't think he'd be where he is without Ron, because he's so, and teams sometimes, I remember when Leon came to join me at Honda, or it was Kawasaki, because he was pretty accepted at Honda, I remember. But Kawasaki, our team manager, strong character, and he was like, I'm going to take Leon, and it's going to work, and Ron's not going to be there. But they quickly realised Ron's such an asset to the team, so it can work whatever way. But yeah, my dad, don't get me wrong, he's involved, he's there, but he's in the pub on the outside with his mates watching, and that's nice that, if I ever need to chat, he's around.
Did Ron help you much early? When you first started road racing, you said you went to the Ron Haslam Race School. Presume you got a bit of coaching that day, but aside from that, did you get any pointers from Ron?
Not really, but I spent a lot of time with Leon in my early days. We struck up quite a good friendship, and I spent a lot of time on their farm. If anyone that knows Leon and been to the farm, it's like the closest thing to Nitro Circus you can imagine. Like it's pretty much like a Pastrana compound. I hadn't been there since they built the foam pit in the big shed, but it was just a competition daily, and Ron's involved, whether it's trials bike riding, or they go through fads of, remember once it was like unicycles, and I couldn't do this, and I was useless on a trials bike, but just going there was so much fun. So it's the sort of relationship I'd love to have with my kids, being able to ride together, and it was pretty cool hanging out with them. And even when I was teammates with Leon, I felt like if I ever asked Ron an honest question, or Ron, you were out the back at T6 there, what do you, I'm really struggling to do that. What? And he would tell you. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't. A lot of people would just give you a big curveball and send you off on a tangent.
Especially when you're competing with Sun.
Yeah. So I think he also respected my relationship with Leon. We were pals on and off the bike. Mm-hmm. Through BSB, he was a big rival of mine, and then World Championship in the beginning, he came in as the real deal with Suzuki, and then he went to a private Honda team. He was still competitive. And then he started that BMW project, and he was, competitive on that for as good as the bike was back then.
Mm-hmm. So going into the road racing, it was very much like fast track, so 125 with the Red Bull setup, and then into Super Sport on the
Super Sport, yeah.
Didn't do Super Stock.
No.
And that was again on the Red Bull linked with the factory Honda.
Yeah, so it's pretty much Carl Harris's teammate, but with different colours.
Yeah, and then did you do 1 year in Super Sport?
I did half a season.
And is that when you did?
Which is not lucky. I mean, I had an issue, like a mechanical issue with the brakes at Alton Park first. Went into Island Bend with no brakes, and it's like a 2-pump jump. And and the exact same happened in Knock Hill, and that was in morning warm up. So I got knocked out, and I can't remember if there was a 7-day rule or Knock Hill was the next week or 2 weeks. But I went to Knock Hill. The same thing happened on morning warm up of Knock Hill, and. Knock Hill, there's no margin for not having a front brake. And
what bike was this on?
It was in a Super Sport bike.
What flavour? What brand?
She was a Honda.
She was a Honda. Twice.
Twice.
That's a confidence knock, mine.
So yeah, it was. It was a mechanic. It wasn't technical. It was, I think, a mechanical oversight.
Right.
So I was thinking. No, I wasn't thinking. Oh, my poor leg. I was thinking, I've messed it up. I'm still working for my uncle's engineering workshop. Going to day release college. Twice a week.
Was that did you smash your femur then?
Yeah, my femur had a compound fracture. And the funny thing, I wish I was knocked out. I remember everything, and I remember coming into the corner thinking, because it haunts me. I think, turn 3 is right, so I'm sure if I go in a bit in the back brake, I'll be able to navigate to turn 3. But you never realise the gradients there. It's never happening. So I got just steamed into the tire wall, and I remember, I wish I was crying in the gravel, and it was old. Great medical director back in BSB then, Toby Barnfoot, great lad. He was on the scene within minutes, and I got the proper calm down juice, the white juice straight into your arm, and I was calm. I remember him vividly saying he's broke his leg. I think, how the hell does he know I broke my leg? I've got my leathers on. but my leg was, scraping the gravel, through my leathers. So I'm still, good physios and osteos say I'm about 4 mils shorter on my left side, because of the way the bone grew back, and I never wanted to re-break it and go external fixator and make it all perfectly in line. So
is that option still on the table in the future?
No, I when I was training, I used to use a little heel lift inside my trainers if I was running or walking for long distances.
Aye.
But laziness is just, I can cope without it.
Aye.
But that was a tough time because I was thinking, I'm back to work, career's over. I've had 18 months at road racing and was starting to go okay. I think I had a top 6 in super sport back when Harris was there and Michael Laverty. There's a lot of decent teams there. TAS, Suzuki, Paget's, Honda, MSS, Kawasaki. It was a decent little setup, and it just seemed things were starting to go okay, and I was like gone. But there's obviously a little bit of guilt in the fact that it was a mechanical issue, and on my hospital bed, both Neil Tuxworth and Linda Pelham came and told me that I'd showed so much potential, and they wanted me to relax and get fit because I would ride a super bike in 2005. So I've got 18 months of experience, and they put me on the grid with like Rudder and Keogh and John Reynolds and all them guys. I was like, really? So that was daunting enough. And
yeah, but sorry, let's go down like memory avenue here. How daunting was that? Were you just lying there off your nut on drugs going, I'm not sure I'm ready for this? Or
no, I was like, yeah, give
really
it to me.
Just that confident, you just thought, I can do that straight off the bat.
Yeah, because looking back, probably shouldn't have. But then you can never, in racing, you can never choose your opportunities. Because
couldn't agree more.
If we could all choose, we'd all ride a Repsol Honda or,
aye,
a factory Ducati and a GP, or you can't choose. You've got to go where you can go. So someone gave an assist. It was like, oh yeah, of course. Can I sign now? Are you drunk? And it was cool. It was a big eye opener because super sport bike 125 is way more technical than a super sport bike.
For our listeners, on what grounds do you mean on
so
that?
In a 125 you can change so much. You can change stiffnesses of swing arms, head pipe angles, front forks or factory built front forks. You can change internal ratios of gearboxes.
Jesus.
Between sessions. This is all stuff I learned with, when I was working with Robin. Where you go to super sport, you can pretty much, the super sport bike, it's a super stock bike. So you have access to, ride heights and preload compression and wheelbase, if you like.
Aye.
Some minor electronics. But then going to a super bike, it's like opening a can of worms again. It's the same. And back then the factory guys were Keogh and Rudder. We had Carl Harris and I on like Louth built super bikes, which found their way into road racing through Wilson Craig once upon a time. And these bikes, I think they're still riding somewhere, but they were like so much power, so fast to your hand. Like if I could go back, I remember riding the 10K at Superbike for the first time as well. And we had crisis meetings after a few races, and I went to a little oval, like a little dirt track oval, and rode around it in second gear, telling the engine tuner, I need less power. After a horrible weekend where I was 13th or something. And the engine tuner couldn't believe I was telling them,
less.
Take less. So because the connection was horrible. And the old BSB bike was similar.
Mm.
But once we did that in the Honda days at 10K, I went 5.4, 4.5. I was on the podium in Kyalami, and then I won a race in Misano, just by like making a bike easy to ride. Some people in this world thinking all this power. I remember talking about my brother Richard. We had this kit Honda we bought from TSR that comes it's pretty much a stalker with a different internal gearbox, stock bike, kit ECU. A BMW brought out this super duper 200 horsepower road bike, and everyone's like, I need a BMW. I was like, Richard, you don't. You need a bike that's easy to ride. And so he got it, and he couldn't go anywhere close to as fast as he did in his old, like, outdated Honda, if you like. And
yeah.
So I always maintained, an easy bike is a fast bike. And still now, I like easy mechanical power, easy to control. on my hand. I don't like the electronic guys doing too much. I like to control that. When start talking about, I had teammates in the past that just wanted such a light, fiery engine that I couldn't cope with that, especially in the wet conditions.
Too lively.
And they want like the electronic engineer to do the work. Where I think a real torquey, mechanical in your hand engine is really good. So that 05 year was a big learning year. I crashed a lot, made a lot of mistakes, but then we got a really good upgrade for 06 when I raced British Championship. We got these kit bikes. Like, it wasn't a full factory bike like the Michelin shod bikes of Keogh and Harris back then, I think.
Was this before the Pirelli days? When
Yeah, it was open tire because I had Dunlops. They had Michelins, the factory boys, and I think Tommy Hill ran Pirellis. Rob Mack's lot.
Rob Mack, yeah.
So that was cool because it was like tire wars. You go to tracks so me and Leon were good rivals. So we'd go to him and his GSE Ducati. They were strong at places like Alton Park, I want to say. Dunlop had that place. We were good at Alton Park. Go to Thruxton. Dunlop had it nailed. They were fast there.
They used to fly tyres in like overnight and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, well, we were at Thruxton. I remember FP1 was a disaster. The bike was just spinning. It's like you put as many turns of preload in the rear shock as you could. The thing just wouldn't grip, just spinning. And I remember they'd sent someone from Clermont-Ferrand, the Michelin factory, with different tyres up to meet someone that was coming from Cali down to meet them, to bring them back for us for Saturday morning to try. But that was cool.
That is proper, that though, isn't it?
So
do you miss that element of like the extra variable with tyres? Or
no, because it's out of your control. It's better everybody's the same. Because even with manufacturers now, there's too much to. You've got strengths and weaknesses. So tyres is the biggest control. I think having a control tyre as well lets the manufacturer adapt the bike.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Any party a little bit misses it.
What's that?
They're like,
open tyre?
Yeah, it just adds a bit more flavour to it, doesn't it? Now, don't get me wrong. I agree with what you're saying. It's about like, keeping it on a level playing field.
No, because what you had, I remember, so you'll remember quite well, maybe 2005 or 2006. So I was a Dunlop, let's say the A rider. So there was like Harris, GSE, me, and maybe the Crescent Suzuki, whatever it was back then. Rizzler Suzuki.
Rizzler, aye.
With James Hayden and someone else. We get like good treatment. And we had they brought out this different profile, which is a 200 profile. But the other teams didn't have access to that. So straight away, this 200 tyre was much better until you raced in the wet, where the old 205 spec profile was much, much better.
Yeah. And
Scott Smart won on a Vivaldi, wherever it was, purple bike or brown bike, potato bike. You remember them?
Yeah. Was that not what Ollie and Tom Bridle used to ride?
Yeah. They rode Vivaldi bikes. They were like horrible to look at, but the guy came in with big trucks, big hospitality. I think 4 superbike riders maybe.
Right.
So like dumped a lot of money in the championship, but they got like B spec tires. So Scott Smart won
on the old tyre
because the 205 was better in the wet. So
Scott Smart always used to do well on the Hawk Kawasaki.
Yeah, he was good. Him and Glenn Richards.
Yeah.
The old.
That's such a great time in my memory because it was when I was just. BSB used to be on the like Channel 1 or Channel 2 back then, like BBC 1, BBC 2. And I remember like every weekend. So that's kind of what ignited my love for BSB.
Yeah.
I remember watching. So do you know when you first stepped up into superbikes on the Red Bull bike? We're just talking about this on the way down actually because we're just looking through random pictures and I seen a picture from turn 1 at Knockhill. I was like stood on the inside, and I remember you. I think you would have been about 6th at the time, something like that, like in the sort of leading pack, but a little bit off. But you were the only one doing big stoppies into turn 1, and I was trying to get pictures of like that little kicker. I'll show you a picture of it because it was. I loved the colours of the Rizzler Suzuki back then, so I always had all the Rizzler Suzuki kit. But we ended up.
Yeah, I always thought Denning turned out a pretty nice show, you know, from a...
That's me on...
No way!
yeah, watching Term 1 at Knockhill.
Flip, mate. So,
Mad.
so what age are you then?
I'm 26 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're young.
Mm.
Super young.
But yeah, that's crazy enough. But
Mate, well, they're talking about like Top Rack's 26 or 25 and he's got the world at his feet, so you never know. MotoGP is it next year for you?
If there's anyone listening, I want to give them a chance.
Yeah,
Please,
there you go.
give them a go. Give them a go. Straight
and so you did that first year in Superbikes on the Red Bull. Did you do another year with Red Bull? Or did you? Is that
Yeah,
when you went up?
on these kit bikes.
Right.
So all the parts came from Japan and like kit ECU, and they were built out of packages in Louth, and it was good. Bike worked. You know, it was tried and tested, and it was easy to ride. And I think I got fourth that year. Because funny story with that, I'd nixed and I had nothing. I had like 500 quid in my bank, and my mum wanted to. Well, myself, I wanted a house as well. I wanted to move back home because I was renting a room and like a mechanic's house in Louth, and so this house, my first house, cost 150 grand, and I had agreed to put a 10% mortgage down, 15 grand. I thought, how the hell am I going to find this money? I've got 500 quid in my account, and I was lucky I had a diesel card from my uncle who was in transport, a sponsor, and got put through the books in his company, and I had 150 quid a week back then, so I had a bit of spending money. Didn't cost me money in diesel, and rent was £300 a month to rent this room. So it was cool. But that year, to finish fourth in the British Championship, I had a decent bonus from Honda. I had a decent bonus from Alpine Star, RI.
You've been with them a while then.
And then the mortgage deposit was starting to creep up. I was starting to get there, but I was falling short. So I had agreed to do a couple of races here. The Sunflower Trophy races in Ireland were really big. The middle race paid £3,000 prize money, the Sunflower race. So Paul Bird actually loaned me some of his bikes with my team bodywork on it. And I went out and won everything that weekend. Crashed a few of Birdie's bikes though, so if he asked me to pay for damage, I'd probably have to sell the house. But I had fastest lap money, race money. Went the next day to get Mallory Racer of the Year. Got hurt there, to be fair, but the organizer paid my some start money. So all of a sudden, I have deposit for my house, but no money to pay any mortgage. So that's. But then that was my first pro contract. At the end of that year, I got like HM Plant Honda signed me. I got a wage and a salary because mum and dad they were pretty keen that until you're getting paid to race, you're going to work. You're going to if you're away sofa surfing or whatever, you come home and you're working in the family business or driving a fork truck for them or helping my uncle out.
Yeah.
So I seen the HM Plant Honda contract come through. I was like, I ain't working anymore. I'm pro and I'm going to try and treat it serious.
And what age was this then when you got your first pro contract?
It was 07 and I was 87, 20.
20.
I was born in 87, it was 07.
Jesus.
And so teammates with Kianari.
Teammates with KO, yeah.
And again, that was it was when you think about all the names in the championship back then.
Yeah,
it was
Haslam,
such a
Lavia, Shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was cool times. Sykesy, yeah.
What was Keo like to work with then? Was he just like what's his crack?
He was brilliant. He was so quiet and respectful. But I've got so many stories. Like, see, sometimes Keo's. I'd love to work out the goings on in his head because some days he's on. And when he's on, I'm sure you've seen that video of Superpole when he was at World Superbike at Donington Park. If you haven't, YouTube Kianari wet Superpole Donington Park, and see, like just watching his bike skills is unreal. But then watching him suffer somewhere like a track in BSB where he's like nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurt even more when I went to World Championship and he did, and then he came back to BSB. And I came to Alton Park once and I seen him suffering. It's like probably one of the most talented blokes in the world. Beating Bayless at Brands Hatch, watching him going down into that Graham Hill bend on that 10K Honda and put the WP forks on the bottom the whole way into Graham Hill bend. You're like, how's it possible? But he was cool. We always got changed. He loved sleeping. So he sort of, I inherited that, hobby of his. So we had these workbenches in the back of the HM plant truck where we'd sleep under little camp beds, and we'd get changed beside each other, before we'd go and race. It'd be funny because, you're trying not, but we're never trying to psych each other out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd be open and honest, like, oh man, I'm so nervous. He's like, hi, me too. And so it sort of broke some barriers, and we could be, quite good. And then we were teammates at Suzuka one year, and he's a super good guy.
Well, in your opinion, when you saw that change, you went to Alton Park and you just saw him go off the boil. In your opinion, what could that have been? What was all that about?
Don't want to be too heavy opinioned about it, but I think he was babied too much within that team, the Honda team. I think that's why you see him when he went to. He went to Bill Base BMW and
BMW.
Was so fast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
he just went off. Would you like a Rich Energy? Monster Energy sponsored.
I'm good. I've got my Monster here.
Can you go near that and get would you get sued if you held that?
Probably not. But if they drop my contract next year because you put that in my face, I'll not be very happy.
Yeah, I won't be allowed back in Northern Ireland. Period. After that one, I know that much.
But yeah, I think when Keogh came to the UK, he came so young as Honda's little next.
How young was
champion?
Young then? What age did Keogh
I think he was. The other thing about Keogh is he was a closet smoker.
Yeah,
it was funny because I would go sometimes. Where was it? Like Thruxton or something.
But away from the cameras.
Went for the toilet. It was like stunk of like cigarettes. Somebody smoking in the cubicle. I was like, whoa. Anyway, I went to get changed, and in comes the stinking of fumes. Keogh to get changed. Must have been you, eh? But I think he came to UK as so young. The team looked after him like a child. I mean, I went there super young, and Keogh was like golden balls. He lived with Harvey Belcher, the team coordinator back then, and he was just he didn't have to think about nothing. Everything, his life was arranged for him. First, because he didn't speak perfect English in the beginning, and secondly, I think Honda UK didn't want a bad rap from the big bosses back home. Keogh reporting anything, so. I felt like sometimes I got a bit of a bum deal there because I was definitely the second rider.
Yeah.
But and I don't think that helped Keogh in his later life because once you set that level of being looked after, you're always sort of looked after. Where I was always on my own 2 feet and self-sufficient.
How did you sort of see your time with under the likes of like Harv and Tuxworth? Tuxworth was like the main guy in Honda back then, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Do you look back on those days as like a sort of pleasant experience or mixed?
Yeah. It was a hard one with Harv because I really like Harv. And maybe that relationship didn't work the best because Harv became the guy that I'd go and have drinks with on a Sunday night, but then he would have to be the boss on a Monday.
Aye, difficult.
So Ronald 10K, the manager I went to after that, he was the same, but he never tried to be a real boss. He was actually always kind of your mate, almost. Which I wasn't a fan of that style either. But the manager I have now, I can't fault him. Don't think I've been to his house. I've been there 7 years, won 6 world titles for them, and
just a very professional relationship.
Yeah, and like not just so regimented. Like, I mean, at 10K, I remember I got so frustrated in the off seasons that I would never speak with my team. Never. They would never check in. To the point where I used to think, I'm not going to go to the first test and then they'll ask where I am, and I'll be like, well, you haven't spoke to me.
Yeah.
I got to that point where I felt like just not
cared about. I just
a bit like that. Where the team I'm with now, like, see, down to when I first signed the contract, it was quite. If you weren't used to it, it was quite controlling. We have got to go and do a lot of blood tests, body checks, fitness tests. It's quite a lot per year. So I was thinking, trying to check up on me and looking at it from a bad point of view, as opposed to, hey, we want you to be the best you can be.
Aye.
Forget the results, but the next result to be better, and then the next one to be better. They would never, like, you would get roasted. If you have I remember races with Tom and Laguna Seca. Tom's like last of the late breakers, and he's just a point and squirt guy. So trying to race Tom with my style on the same bikes was really hard because I was a bit more flowing than him. But I kept dive bombing him into like last corner, and Tom would pass me back. And I remember, and Chaz was out front. He was gone. He was Mr. Laguna back then. I remember Game coming to my cabin after the race and like roasting me. Like, if you can't make a clean pass and make it stick, don't make it. Don't put yourself in danger. I was like, from the point, why don't you have my back on this and say, good job for trying, didn't work out. Next time I'll be all right. And he would, sometimes you'll have a race win, but you'd get an email or,
an email.
What happened? Or a WhatsApp. Hey, I've just checked the race again on lap 6 in T5. What happened? I seen this happen. You're like, but you think that's a bad thing, but then you realize he's so invested. And when you start thinking, this is someone trying to get on your case, and you realize that he's fighting in the same corner as you and he's trying to make you better.
Yeah.
So it took me like a year to buy into that. And then it's like we all fire in the same way, and it's such a good team atmosphere.
I seen I think it was in lockdown, there was you and Alex did a bit of a tour around KRT, the headquarters in Spain. Like, it literally blew my mind, like how cool that place is.
Yeah, it's cool. But you know what's cool? Have you been to Honda in Louth?
Yeah, we were there last week.
That's maybe it's because I remember being like a rabbit in the headlights with the little machine shops and like everything. I'm quite weird. Like, I'm a square box guy, and there's the symmetry. If you cut a line down the middle, the 2 workshops on each side, the 2 trucks coming in, it was meant. So they had a cool facility, and I really I wish I'd had a good rookie season in that superbike. I was there because that was trying to learn a lot. And then I never really had my mum and dad were separating at that, we were just having bad times, and I sort of left that situation at home, and I was just not really in a stable place. Maybe if I'd have been there like Keo with his comfortable bed every night and normalized and lived that way, maybe I would have enjoyed it a bit more. But the first year I found hard, and then sort of when I was more self-sufficient and had a little bit of income from personal sponsors and then the salary in the 07 year, I would have enjoyed it a bit more.
So was it in your second year in Superbikes that you started to like sort of get podiums? And I remember was your first win at Mondello?
That was my last year on the HM Plant bike.
Right.
I got quite a few podiums in quite a few seconds on the Red Bull bike, pole positions and stuff like that.
Do you still have the lap record around Mondello?
No idea.
I think you do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To stop going then.
We're gonna have to find that out, right? But Lauren's on the case. We're gonna find out if we still have a lap record around. How many lap records do you have?
Don't know. Not many. Well, a few in Superbike because I got there's a few awards in Superbike, like best lap award, Super Pole award, and I won both of them this year even. So, but lap records, there's probably been a few broke. I think I forgot one in Qatar. It was fast there. But it's weird with the qualifying tire because you go so fast that you can't replicate it on a race tire.
Nah, it doesn't matter.
So if you're good at Super Pole, you'll have best lap track records in a lot of places.
Do you know at the start when I was listing all the sort of accolades about like sort of 6 titles and then your MBE, recently your OBE, which congratulations.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Hell of an honour, even away from the sport, to just like, it's like, it's something really like to be massively proud of. When I was doing a bit of Googling earlier as well, I seen you had a honorary doctorate at Belfast.
Belfast, Queen's University.
Does that give you initials before you?
I'm not a fan of using any of that. Even on social media, I wouldn't put MBE after
but MBE, OBE, or does one counteract another?
B. Beyonds, if you're like honorary bachelor, like letters as a doctor. So, I don't know. Dr. Jonathan Ray, MBE, OBE, BH ons. Not right? Maybe.
Oh my god!
Yeah, what? How naff is that? You know what I mean? It's a joke. It's so nice for not just for me, but Northern Ireland, UK, and motorcycles to get all these outside of our niche, like awards, bring some light on the sport. I think the coolest one was the BBC Sports Personality of the Year when I was runner up there in 17. And they were like, "Oh, could we feature you in the show?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there." I was like, "No, but your bike." I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I was in Liverpool, was it Echo Arena maybe? So I had to go down to rehearsals, and the whole thing was about trying to get this ZX10 on a really tight angle up on this ramp. So I was zero nervous about what I was going to say on the stage because I was so nervous about getting a dick out of myself on the ramp. So I had to like channel my inner Dougie Lampkin just to get up onto the ramp. I think that was super cool because afterwards, the press conference, I didn't feel disrespected, but nobody knew about motorbikes. And it got everyone talking about superbikes or road bikes. And
it's great for the sport.
I mean, loads of people then, and off the back of that, I got a book deal to do an autobiography. And, I actually start the first page of that and talking about people saying you ride bikes and people think you're stupid, you're crazy. Like, what are you... But you're not, because you're actually really highly skilled and you're clever. Most top riders have to have a decent brain. So it's not some sort of dropkick sort of
adrenaline junkie.
Empty head. You always get, you riding more, but you must leave your brain in the toolbox, do you? But it's not like that. And I think people understand that now. It's like televised loads of people. It's good for here in Northern Ireland because loads of bike fans, especially after road race culture here growing up, was massive. It's a real shame because I think what Jeremy McWilliams has achieved coming from Northern Ireland, even Adrian Coates around the same time, was incredible. Alan Patterson, guys like that went and took on the world in Grand Prix and done really well. Like Jeremy's out-qualified Valentino Rossi. He's the greatest of all time motorbike rider, period. And but you come to here and it's about road racing, like street racing for the European guy, Northwest 200, Europe or Ulster Grand Prix, and it tended to be till the Laverty brothers came through just before me. Michael was really good, doing good at British Championship level. Then his brother John and also Eugene, Adrian Coates still at British Championship level, and myself. Then there's a bit of a shift in the mentality of people back home that circuit racing, as they call it here, is cool. We can be proud of Michael Dunlop, but we can be proud of the Lavertys or what I'm doing as well. So it's cool to see that shift because when I first started road racing, the pure road racers would call you, or the street racers would call you like car park racers. Got that all the time. So I'm a glorified car park racer because I ride at Donington Park. So it's a wee bit of a shift in mentality, and it's really cool now that people really respect what I'm doing. I get a great following because nowadays on social media it has positives and negatives. You can see really crap things said about you or whatever, but generally there's a lot of love out there, and people are positive and get a lot of support that way, which is really nice because you get to feel it and see it, as opposed to being so far behind a barrier, maybe seeing a flag or merchandise, and you get people can actually give you really good props on social media.
You get a good following around the Northern Irish flags are like everywhere, like in pretty much every country now.
Yeah, that's amazing. In Australia, US is cool. I mean, the local race is it's not Donington, it's pretty much Portimao because there's Aer Lingus and Ryanair flights go to Faro from Belfast.
And that's a local round.
And that tends to be where a lot of the support goes, and that's really cool. I mean, I remember so hot, and not to tell stories, I forget the girl's name, but it was a really nice story that hit home with me. And I remember I was out for dinner I'd had a horrible weekend. This year it was. I crashed out of race 1, being a tool. I crashed out of the wet race, Super Pole race, being impatient in the wet. And I won race 2, but it was like pretty much championship was gone by that point. I made a few mistakes and went out for dinner. Went down the strip in Praia de Rocha, where it was pretty much like walking down the street in Belfast, to be fair. There was like Irish bars and people from the circuit, and I ended up stopping outside this bar, and people were singing songs and like about me. It felt like being at Windsor Park, at a Northern Ireland football match. And I was talking to this girl and her daughter that was telling me this story, and it hit home. And I always remember it, that, and I had a few beers, but it made me even more emotional. That the husband and the father passed away, and on his dying bed, I was racing somewhere, and he was asking, "Hey, how Jonathan got on today?"
Never.
I thought, what? I was vibing, like having a good. I'd had a shit weekend, to be fair, but I'd won a race and I was out with the family, and then I heard that and I thought, that's unreal, that you can touch someone in that way. And I had it just recently, people just telling you that, yeah, my dad's a big fan, or we watch your racing all the time, and that's amazing, because I came from, we've got quite a lot of sports stars, and it's just because it's a small place. It's like living in Northern Ireland's probably like living in your local borough, if you like.
Yeah.
So it's a small reach, but me winning a race on Sunday is 6 o'clock news. It's back page of the Monday morning paper, and that's amazing, So it tends to be a really loyal, good fan base that have your back.
Have you, when you've been climbing the ladder in your career, has that pressure ever got on top of you sometimes? That representing Northern Ireland?
No, because I only really noticed not that my fans are glory hunters or anything like that, but I noticed it more when I won a championship. The impact, because you'd see people actually making the effort then to go to a race, or they might have followed your career, or you would bring new fans to the sport and they would come and watch a race. So you notice it more then. It's a bit like myself, it's big fan of what Carl Frampton's done in boxing. I haven't followed his amateur career. I'm not a glory hunter, but I went to watch him, fight in Windsor Park.
Yeah.
Loved it. Big respect. But I think just being proud of people locally as well. And there's obviously the diehard core fans that have been there from the start. And great story. A shout out to him is Alan Patterson and Johnny Moffat. Alan, I told you, lent me my first ever 125 to go to do the selection process for my first job. Both Alan and Johnny went to Indonesia to watch my last race there at the end of last season, just on a bit of a jolly, but to support me. So feeling that people, and it was a horrible journey, Indonesia is far. It's Jakarta, 2 days quarantine in Jakarta in a hotel, and then another internal flight to Little Island, Lombok, and then watch the race and home. And people did that, and that is massive. Really, really, really cool. So big respect.
Now, from when you went from British Superbikes to World Superbikes, your first opportunity, remind us, did you go to World Supersport first?
Supersport, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the 10 car bike.
Yeah.
Teammates with
Andrew Pitt
back then, and in terms of, people talk about sort of equating BSB and World Supersport in terms of, like, a few years ago, it would have definitely been said that World Supersport was it would have been a step up in terms of, like, the level of competition. I'm not sure where that sort of stacks up now, but did you, were you pleased that you went to Supersport to learn the tracks first before?
No, because I remember. I tell you for why. The funny story where I grew a set. I remember Roger Burnett was trying to help me go to World Championship, but it was at the time where Toslin was leaving 10K to go to Tech 3 in Grand Prix. So 10K didn't want to really speak to Roger because they weren't best friends, and they were interested. I'd heard through Leon Haslam's manager, Chris Herring, had told me that the 10K guys are really interested, but Roger had set up some meetings with the Xerox Ducati lot to go and be teammates with Troy Bayliss, and I'd have been, instead of Michel Fabrizio, it was then. So I had these like two sort of floating options, if you like, but I had to have a knee operation that end of that season due to that a recurring injury I'd mentioned at Mallory Park Race of the Year. I had to have that finally cleaned out and operated on. So the Xerox Ducati ride, they weren't that keen on me having this operation and missing some testing, so they were talking about a satellite team, and the 10K brothers. It was a Brands Hatch weekend. I went into the meeting with them, and they'd sold me a deal about Supersport. I was like, I've come to talk about a superbike ride. I'm a superbike rider. You're going to hire Keo next year, and there's talk of Carlos Checa, Keogh, and Sofwoglu were their 3 riders, but they weren't all fixed. No. We don't really have space for a certified rider. Wow, well, I think I was by myself. Yeah, I was by myself, and I said, "All right, well, I think we're wasting each other's time here then." And I got up and left. I remember walking down. They had this like triple level hospitality in it, and I walked down the stairs thinking,
What have I done?
what have I done? I hope this satellite Ducati thing's good. And then the phone rang like literally half an hour later, and they said, Ronald said, "Oh, can you come back to the truck?" And I went back, and he said, "What about if we do like a 3-year contract, like a fixed 3-year contract, and your first year will be in super sport with no pressure and learn the tracks?" And they were trying to sell me this before, to be fair. But if you show potential, we'll give you a superbike ride. Which turned out to be controversial at the end of 2008 because Andrew Pitt had a similar contract where if he won the championship, he was getting the superbike ride.
Right.
So he won the championship, but I showed potential. I was runner-up, and I ended up getting the contract. So I also, me and Pitty were, although we were rivals at the end of the season and things were tense, we were actually really good friends. And that was, that wasn't great because he also deserved to have a superbike ride and that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And then into superbikes, and that was the beginning of like a good chunk of years on the Honda. I've gone back to that sort of the middle of that period. I think if you'd anybody that was like sort of in the paddock or anyone that had like a keen interest in World Superbikes, if you'd said who's the best rider out there, I remember at the time a lot of people were saying Jonathan's the best rider, but he's at the time the Honda wasn't quite up there. At that time, was that your belief during the period when you were at Honda? Did you feel like the bike was holding you back from wins?
There was a lot of years like that because probably the first 2 years the bike was incredible. 09 and 10, my rookie year, and 010. Because I was I fourth in my first year and fifth in the second, or fifth and fourth, something like that. The year 010, actually, they talk about Leon Haslam running Biaggi to the end of the year. I was like literally a handful of points off Leon until I got hurt, broke a wrist, 2 rounds to go. But then after that, the bike just never really progressed. It was the same. I also maintain that the 07 Blade was the best bike Honda made.
Right.
What changes happened from 07 onwards?
Oh, it's completely different. Like chassis, engine.
Really?
Aerodynamic. The 07 bike's not a pretty thing to look at. It was a big, long.
Oh, the underseat job. Yeah.
John's got one in his house, a big HM Plant TT winning bike. But it's when I remember going to visit him once and seeing it under his stairs and think, "What, that thing's massive."
They are
how
massive.
old is it? But when you're riding it, it was a proper thing.
Aye.
Yeah, the 08 bike was tough, but it was good. It just never progressed. It never, we never got it better. We tried throwing loads of different things at it. Straight away, Checa was my teammate in year 1, along with Keogh. I was outperforming them from the middle of the season on. Next year, I became pretty much lead rider, alongside Neukirchner, I want to say, or somebody, can't remember, 010. But at this stage, I've still got 4 years of riding experience.
Yeah.
But 10K are listening to everything I'm saying, and I felt like my feedback is always okay, but I'm a rider with natural feel. Sometimes don't want to cut my nose off in future development jobs, but don't think I'm that great a development rider, because I'll just
very honest to be, yeah.
I'll ride a bike to its capabilities, whether it's soft, hard, long, short. I feel like I've got a sense of how it needs to be ridden to be fast. Which sometimes fries my crew chief's head now. If he wants me to ride the bike in a certain way, he makes it that way to force me to not brake too late or to brake later, or you know what I mean. So it was just one of them where we got a wee bit lost in development. Bike wasn't progressing. We were, Aprilia were in the championship, BMW, Kawasaki were starting to throw the kitchen sink at it.
See, they were the great years though, because it was like a light switch for you though. That's what I liked about racing then. It was like when the rain hit, You might as well just just let everyone move out the way like Moses in the Red Sea.
That was your
Jonathan Ray.
that was your chance.
Well, there
to
was
get
me and there was Sylvan was pretty good. Sylvan Ginchely in the wet.
It was fantastic. It was just like you were praying for rain, watching the telly.
Yeah,
like
I was.
Here we go. I bet you were.
But there's a few years that were tough. I mean, I had a few injuries. I crashed an oil at Nürburgring in them Honda years. Broke a leg. The same leg I broke at Knockhill.
It's a shame it didn't reach straight.
I remember the worst I was I remember my wife, Tara, she girlfriend back then, or fiance maybe, we were on the paddock bike going to the box. I remember like sighing, thinking, like, I don't want to be here. I'd rather be at home injured. And do you know what happened? I went out in that Curvone at Misano, the fast right at the end of the back straight. Morning warm up it was. And tipped into Curvone, went outside onto the curb, onto the AstroTurf that was damp, and had a massive crash and broke a wrist. And it was like, God bless Alex Lowe's, and it was Ruben Zeiss was my teammate back then, but he stood in for me, and the bike was a nail. Alex was doing good on that WFR, maybe Honda and BSB.
Yeah.
And he came to ride. It was probably a better bike than what our bike was. It was just not as advanced as the other bikes. But it wasn't through the lack of my team trying. I couldn't say anything bad about them. It was, from a technical point of view, Honda did nothing to help.
Yeah.
It was all just, we got a lot of support from Honda Europe financially to go racing, but we were seen as a burden to HRC and Honda because we would take money or technical knowledge from MotoGP, which they were fully focused on.
Right.
So, Alex stood in, and I think that was the introduction of... whilst I was injured, they introduced fly-by-wire because the Honda was old cable throttle. So it's fly-by-wire. So I came back and did a test at Assen, and the bike was okay. I could move my wrist enough to ride. It's the same injury James Tozen had that finished his career, where he ended up having to be his wrist fused.
So you've got a lot of good range.
I had a really good range.
Yeah.
It was a scapholunate bone. So I broke my scaphoid, but they pinned that and then they cut in here and sort of not fused.
Yeah.
They call it like they tied the two ligament together and with anchor hooks, and there was pins coming out here, and
Jesus.
good job. Same surgeon, same injury, but I recovered, fortunately. And it was the same physio in the Isle of Man. Great girl, good mention. Isla Scott helped me through that. So, came back, fly-by-wire on the bike, and won some races. Won at Imola, and I think might have won at Manuka, or was in the lead when I had a small technical. But not having to use a clutch and a back shift and electronics helping you out a little bit was incredible. It was actually easy to ride. You could think about your brake point and your tip-in point as opposed to trying to manage a clutch and everything. So I just had what everybody else had because the Honda became outdated. But it was that was written into the rules as an exemption we could have, like I think, and then Kawasaki, theirs was conventional cable as well. They got it as well.
Yeah.
So that really, really helped, and the bike got better from that point.
I remember your first year in World Superbikes, the Ben Spies was like a complete revelation from AMA.
Was, wasn't he?
And in terms of his style as well, it was very like nowadays it's quite a common sort of style to be like all over the front end and like elbows down and that. But at the time, it like really, really stood out. I mean, being on track with him back then, was it good to race with? And do you think back then when some like usually when there's some like a new style introduced, and if it's winning, there's like a natural sort of urge to like sort of be like, say Marquez came and then people, because he was the benchmark, people were like sort of
the sheep mentality,
adjusting their style to be more like it.
Yeah.
Was there ever?
I don't think from a style point of view. I think more from mentality point of view. Like when Spies came, he brought like an aura of the athlete. Like he was an athlete. I don't forget my peers. I joined World Superbike, and every Sunday night was a party. Honestly. From the 10K Dutchies to it was like Japanese or Kageyama, Haga, Bayliss.
Living it up.
Yeah, Fujiwara, Brock Parks, Craig Jones. Sunday nights were a fun place to be because unlike BSB, nobody was rushing home because their home's a 4 hour. They were all waiting for a flight on a Monday or whatever. So Sunday nights would be mental, like amazing stories. I remember.
Come on, Shep. Most men.
Well,
come on.
Bayless for me is an icon. I remember waltzing into after quite a few beers myself, waltzing into the 10K hospitality. And Dutchies, they all like a tab, so they're all having a bit of a smoke and that. And there's Troy Bayless puffing away, and he's just won 4 races to start the season. He's killing everyone. It's like, Troy, what are you doing, mate? He goes, nothing, mate. It's just high altitude training. I'm like, it's like, what a legend. You know, a legend. And not that I was highly strung, but
Did it start connecting? Like Keogh smoked, he's smoking.
no, I never.
I'm off to the newsagents to get a pack of 20 Bensons.
I mean, I think the only time I bought a packet of fags is when my mum sent me into a shop once to buy them for her. But yeah, it was one of them where that was the culture, if you like. And I think Spee's come and changed all that because he suddenly brought all this. I mean, Tozen was the athlete as well. He played on that card quite a lot. I think he did a cover of Men's Health. Did he, Tozen? Maybe.
Possibly, I'm not sure.
But he skipped that part in the interview, didn't he?
But he maybe, I want to say. But he was athletic. But the rest, his rivals were, well, I know in 08, as a super sport like rookie going into that paddock, it was like, it's just a party. Like you see your BSB Brands Hatch finale party, that was every weekend. And it was cool because I think you lost that chip in your shoulder when you went to World Superbike that, you know, I'm good and you should accept me, because when you were there, everyone was like, yeah, everyone's the same. You're here because you're decent or whatever. And but then Spees came. It was like, did everything right. I mean, you wouldn't know, but you'd hear stories of him weighing out his rice, or he always travelled with his assistant back then. He turned into Brent Copeland, a great guy. We got on well. He's went to manage pro cycling teams. So he brought this real
like professionalism
athlete and I think that changed then. But it also came at a crossover where a lot of the guys I'd mentioned were at the end of their careers. You know, Hagas, Coursers, Kagayamas and Bayless pretty much retired the year after I left, and then it was the new era where a lot of British riders came. Camir, Crutchlow, Haslam, Sykes, Spees. That was like the class of 09 with Coursers still in the BMW, so you still had like the established guys there.
Just goes to show, to know that them few years of BSB, like how strong that cohort
that
was.
class.
It basically
the BSB class of 06 or 07, and Shaky went. He was there in 06. He went with that Sterlgarda Ducati one year. Yeah, it was my rookie year after. It was fast, you know. And I think that brings you on as well when you grow up with fast kids. It's like the same. And remember motocross in the day. You know, if the grade above you or below you was fast or slow would dictate all that kids in the class what level they'd be. So yeah, it was very lucky.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm trying to get my history right about Ben Spees. Did he come from a really, really wealthy family? I'm
not aware of that.
Doesn't ring a bell.
It doesn't ring a bell. Who am I? I'm probably making up some Dubai oil.
I know he tried. So he travelled with he brought 2 American mechanics over. His assistant Brent and his mum, and they just travelled it was like a little American section welded onto that Yamaha team.
Yeah,
but imagine coming to World Superbike in your rookie year, just winning, and then off to Grand Prix. Unreal. It's a real shame. So he rode Tech 3 and he got this factory Yamaha gig, but it's a shame it just didn't work out because he was so talented.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
Do you know for the period you were at Honda, how many years was that in World Superbikes?
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 6 years.
6 years.
Seriously dedicated, that mind.
There was at least say 4 years into that relationship. I think it was quite well established, that you were definitely getting the best out of the bike at the time, and presumably the other manufacturers knew that and were maybe putting offers. Was it always in the back of your mind that if you potentially showed loyalty to Honda and stayed there, that might open up doors in MotoGP where Honda had the sort of best bike at the time? Or was that not really a thought?
That was a hope, but it wasn't something I was banking on because it was never really talked about.
What made you stay at Honda for so long?
Because you believe this or not, it was always the best opportunity for me. And I sat down. Remember Neil Hodgson coming around in the Isle of Man and giving me some pointers about, listen, just write everything down. Or Mark Davis was a great guy. He was Honda EU manager. Not racing, but just a
general manager.
General manager, and really good guy that I still talk to quite a bit about decisions. He's always texting me about things. Good guy, got a good insight of racing from the outside. And he said, when you're making these decisions, just write them down, pros and cons, and you've got it in black and white. And there's always an emotional pull. There'll be the factual pull, and there'll be like when you've got factual, you can see everything. And then you'll know if it's money driven, technical driven, and all the little things you would like. And I've done that with quite a few options I've had. When I've had an option, for example, some years you've never had an option. You just hope to be renewed again.
Yeah.
But there was a few at Honda where you had I was so close. I think the year 13, the year Chaz went and rode for Ducati, I was so close to doing that.
Well, the Ducati ride.
Like, I think I scarred my relationship there because it got so far down the line that it was a teary conversation with Ronald 10K. I remember it. I was parked outside McDonald's in Douglas on the phone, and I was explaining to Ronald why I was leaving, and started tears like, listen, you can do what you like, this is your decision, but we're going to try this, and we're going to try our... And I was like, I broke down in tears, like, all right, let's give it a go.
Was it like breaking up with a girlfriend? That
yeah. And I hate that. But I knew it was probably better for me to do it. You know, a change of scene sometimes is good. But I still maintain it was the best, because the year I continued, I had the best season ever. I was third in the championship behind Gintuli and Sykes. And then I went to Kawasaki.
And I presume all of the experience that you had sort of getting the best out of not the best bike, all of the, developing your riding skills, possibly paid dividends when you did get the bike.
Yeah, and I had, the bike wasn't, as a package, wasn't the best against what I was competing, but it was the best it could be.
Yeah.
And the people inside that team were incredible. They're even probably more of a technical... like engineers than my team. Sometimes when you work for a factory team, you only have so many options you can use. You can't just... It's funny listening to the Peter Hickman podcast you've just done with his mechanic Daz, yeah. And they were explaining the difference between his team and the Cinetic team. And it's so true. Sometimes as a factory team, if you know you need to change, you need to strengthen the chassis like this, but then you've got to sell it to the factory, you've got to wait for approval, probably wait for a test rider to have 6 months of testing or mileage testing, where you could go to down to the engineering shop. There's a lot of swing arm companies in the UK. For example, at 10K, we always had our swing arms made in the UK, and they could build it how you wanted it. You could probably test it, and within a week, you could have something different. We're in a factory team. Sometimes it's not that easy. So honestly, from an engineering point of view, that team was amazing. Just the level of where we were wasn't as good as the competition.
And when you first joined the Kawasaki team, obviously you were going into a team that had won they won the last two championships with Tom.
No, they came close. Tom won Tom won the previous year, so he was number one when I signed the contract. But he got beat that year in 14 by Sylvan.
Yeah, because that was with the Baz. It was a bit controversial at the last.
Yeah.
Team order situation.
It's a bit of a team order situation, and
difficult one.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to ask you the question, but I can ask my co-host here the question. What Baz did, was that right or wrong? The fact that he ignored it.
To be honest, I can't.
You can
really
butt
remember.
In if you want.
I can't really remember I just remember it being controversial, but I can't really remember exactly what happened.
Basically, he had to finish. Like Tom Sykes had to finish behind. Oh no! Basically, it was.
I can't remember the point situation.
I can't remember. Basically, like
it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because Tom wasn't second. I was second in Qatar on my Honda last race, and Tom was third. So if Loris had let him pass in that race, he would have still lost the championship.
Right.
So
it worked out.
But should Loris have done it? From a team player point of view, probably. if it was agreed before the race, probably, because a lot of people say this, you've no idea the money involved.
Oh,
Like the budget's involved to try and go and do this goal, and for just to be single-minded. But I also understand Loris's
but
point of view.
It's a sport in general.
I know the team, the balance of the team, that like Loris and Tom didn't get on. There's a coming together, I think, in Sepang, and a lot of
the season. Yeah,
there was actually no water went under the bridge. It never got resolved.
right.
So,
Bad blood.
so yeah, so when you're asked to do that, when there's no respect, I probably wouldn't. You know, like me and Tom never actually had the best relationship inside. Well, didn't have a bad relationship. We never spoke open and honestly, and
You weren't really
interacted.
friendly.
Oh, we were friendly, but just we were colleagues. You know,
Yeah.
From my point
You
of
wouldn't
view,
go for a pint.
it would be much nicer to be nicer. But you know, I think it was a year he could have been second in the championship to secure Kawi a 1-2, and I dropped a position in Qatar to give him that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'd have wished, you know, I want. It was almost through gritted teeth, you know, because if I needed that support from Alex, say this year, and he was noting and he was on form, and we go to Indonesia, I'd be the first to say, "Listen, dude, this is how some of the sport works. Can you do it? You know, it would come from me as a person, and you probably reward him. Be
Do you know when you did that thing where you dropped back and let Tom through to secure 1-2 in the championship, and obviously it would have been financially much better for Tom, like the bonus for second. Did he thank you for that afterwards?
I think he thanked me with his helmet on.
Right, but it wasn't. It was very like.
But there's no deal about it. You know, if for example, if someone done that for me, there'd be like a watch in the post straight away. Not that I expected that from anybody, but
yeah,
I know the impact it would make. I also know the impact it made for his future contract, because it's like performance based, if you like.
Yeah.
It's quite a big deal. And I also felt really shit for Chaz, because he lost that.
Yeah.
And although me and his rivalry was probably even tenser, he probably deserved it. But, I mean, we're talking about second. We're not talking about first here. So,
sure. Has anyone ever done that to you, like what you did to Tom?
No.
It's quite an unusual thing, to be fair. It's like
It is, but in motorsport, it's quite normal.
Yeah.
No, you see it, especially in F1.
I was about to say, you're physically hearing the team orders through headphones live on the telly.
Yeah. How cool is that, though? Like, not the team orders are not cool, but how cool is radio interaction? It just hooks you. I would never watch Formula One until you can hear a bit of feedback.
Yeah, because you can actually hear the live feed of it. Do you reckon that would work in motorbikes? Would you?
Well,
would you want that?
I can barely breathe. Never mind.
That's what I mean. Like, that's it. But imagine having a team order through your head.
Like, I know my heart rate values when I race, and having to have a conversation with Barry in the box. First, I wouldn't want him talking to me probably, because he's a nervous wreck at times. But
do you reckon that'll ever happen in the sport? I hope not. I hope not.
No. Now we've got one-way communication with dashboard signals.
Yeah.
So yellow flag zones or black flag, or
That's good,
I think
mate.
you got drop a position on the dash.
Yeah.
Something like that, or penalty or long lap comes up.
Right?
Haven't had them, but I think all them communications come on your dash.
I tell you, what's your opinion on the long lap situation? Because I think some professional riders, especially on the MotoGP circuit, have handled it like beautifully artistic. You know, like knee down, just on the white line.
Remember, do you ever see that Fanati at Qatar?
Just dragged on the dirt
On the white line the whole way around. That was impressive.
That was absolutely
Top rack in Estoril was quite impressive too. Like stopped the whole way into the box and then like nailed it. Didn't lose too much time.
It is good. It adds an element to it.
Not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of race direction getting involved during the race at all. But if it helped, for example, this year it got involved in Estoril. It was a strange one because both Top Rack and Reading jumped to start from the front row, but only Top Rack got long lap penalties. I think he got 2. So that's much better than a ride through. Like the old rule, if you move, it's a ride through penalty. It just destroys your race. So
yes,
at least with a long lap penalty, it's some sort of, the penalty fits the crime, if you like.
Yeah,
because you're going to gain
more so
1 or 2 positions by getting a jump start, a good start.
Yes.
I mean, if you launch it as soon as the lights go on from the back row, yeah, you probably need a ride through.
Yeah.
But edging away and gaining that advantage. Previously, you'd be, your pit lane race is over. So I agree with that.
Yes.
It's a salvage job, but Reading didn't get one that time. That was sorted out after the race and stuff. So he could have interfered in somebody else's race, and then it was different. You looked at the same situation in two different ways. So, but I think race direction and Superbike get it right more than wrong. But in the other classes, sometimes you think, who's actually calling these races?
Yeah, definitely. Do you know when you first joined the KRT team? Obviously, you were going into a team that had already won the championship with Tom. Tom was previous world champion with them. Very sort of close knit. In terms of the dynamics, you mentioned earlier, like they were much more sort of professional and sort of stricter than the teams that you'd been with in the past. Did it take you a while to sort of get comfortable? You sort of build your little because there's a lot of sort of trust involved, isn't it? Did it take you a while to sort of get your feet on the ground? And
a little bit. I felt the first year was tough. I mean, I told the team manager that at the end of the year, and I really liked him, but I felt that I was validated going there, but I always felt the need to. I was like a dog looking for its owner to like me, and pat me in the head and feed me, and I was never. Tom seemed, but I was very self-sufficient. I came with, should give Kev a big shout out. My assistant was with me since I went to World Championship, drives my bus and looks after everything on a race weekend from, leather needs to anything I need. He's absolute legend, good guy. But when I'd said I was bringing an assistant to the team, they're like, well, you don't need an assistant. I was like, well, okay, he's really an asset, he'll fit in, okay, he can come, but can't be in the garage and whatnot. And I was like, all right, well, that's sort of half his job gone. And then it sort of just worked. And within like 5 or 6 races, I think the team realised how much they babysat Tom and just looked after everything. And I think he was encouraged then to get an assistant, and they helped support that as well. So big kudos to them. But I always felt that from a team point of view, I never got much attention. Tom was always getting looked after, but maybe that's because he needed that. The team saying that I didn't, it always annoyed me, but I understand from the outside now that my first race for Kawasaki, I won. And cool thing was me and Leon both left Honda. He went to that private Aprilia team.
Oh, I did.
What was it called? Red Devils. And I went to Kawasaki, and we were both 1-2 in Phillip Island. So I'd won my first race for my new team. I thought, this is amazing, and I was looking down the podium, and Tarsh and her family were there. I was looking for the team manager, and he wasn't there. I was like gutted, that was the worst. I could have given the race win back just to get his approval, if you like, and but he was in the box with Tom because he had a tough race. But that's actually from the outset a good way of team management, because he seen that I didn't need. He probably thought I didn't need. I'd won, I'd done my job. His job could be more effective if he was bringing the second rider up. So there was never I never felt there was ever a rider 1 and 2 in that team. But I did feel it took me quite a bit to feel respected until that conversation happened, to be fair. And I think he realised that I was a human at the end of the day, and I did need a wee bit of kudos, and that helped.
I guess it was a kind of tough time for Tom as well. I know he had personal issues over that sort of period, which you alluded to yourself when you've had personal issues with your parents and stuff, and it can really affect your racing.
Yeah.
And also the fact after winning the championship and having feeling like you're the main man in the team, to have somebody join the team and start beating you, it's the dynamics, even if you were the nicest person in the world, it would be really difficult to swallow that. It would be similarly to say if you were having issues and then someone joined Kawasaki next year and started being, there's always that sort of hierarchy, and that it's such a difficult sport.
Yeah, no, I can really imagine, but I can also it's respect as well, and you got to know in this. I've won 6 world titles, but I've been beat more than I've won. I started racing when I was 6 years old. You have to learn to lose, and sometimes, when I first joined, if it was respectful, it would have been easy, and I've never felt I felt that relationship was, especially from a technical point of view, I had my way of riding the bike and he had his way of riding the bike, and it was never validated that my way was my way. It was, no, his way's wrong. Should be this way. Well, it doesn't sometimes work for me. And he's got such a unique riding style. It was always hard to compare data and stuff like that. But yeah, it would have been tough, and I felt it a little bit when Top Rack was at Kawasaki. He beat me a few times, but I was like pumped for him because back I rode out of my skin them days and he beat me. So I was like, oh, fair play.
You know how hard it is.
And also, I really had a soft spot for him because he came through like the Kawasaki junior team at Puchetti in Superstock, and I was always around as a Kawasaki guy and helping him, even in Superbike. So it was cool to have them podiums with him. Even when he beat me, it was just cool. But I never really felt, sometimes, in Parc Ferme, when I would win, I never felt like there was that respect there. It was a reason I won and the others lost. It wasn't like, hey, he done a good job today.
But I tell you what, good thing, like, now that you've brought up the Top Rack, let's talk about like the years beforehand. I'm going to say, from my honest opinion, you could always just tell what the results were of World Superbikes. Jonathan Ray. What you were doing.
Yeah, but I have to disagree.
Oh, here we go. Fantastic.
Yeah, I have to disagree.
Good man.
Because, man, honestly, I would get my ass handed to me on weekends by Tom.
Yeah,
by Chaz. But I put a season together, and I had some horrible weekends.
Yeah.
But it just so happens at the end of the year, the points margin would be pretty big. But flat out, I got beat so badly. And sometimes I remember thinking, how am I going to beat Chaz or Alvaro Bautista or Tom in like the first years? And but it just I won the championship. So it was. I don't feel it was predictable as people say. Like if you're from an outside and you read your paper at the end, you think, oh, he's gone on the championship. You need a showdown format to make it interesting. But it's not like that. I just felt that I got the best out of my package every weekend, and they didn't do that for whatever reason. Where this year it's been not much has changed, but the others aren't. They're putting it together now. You know what I mean? Like Top Rack's putting it together. Reading put it together more or less, and I didn't put it together so well compared to the past, but we're still there. You know what I mean? So
don't not get me wrong. What you have done has been outstanding, but it's like, when you became the top dog very rapidly. The first, the second, the third, but then when you get into the fourth, fifth, you developed a very brilliant habit of being the championship winner, and what you've done is absolutely outstanding. But this year, it just seemed like the whole world was watching into this huge fight. And the thing is, for me, it just made what you have done already and what you're doing now all the better. And I just think this season for me has just been, everyone's been talking about it a lot more in depth, a lot more focused. And me personally, as a motorbike racing fan, it's been outstanding. Yeah, no, absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, and I feel it as well, because I from a motorbike fan, and a real racer. I love the racing. Yeah. I love like being close, fights, battles, the nervous tension, like what's it going to be? What's going to be the result? Like I thrive on that. It's what I do it for, and this year was like that. Every race, that if you put it together and you were good, you could win. We had some tough weekends this year, but we had some weekends where most weekends were good. I knew that I put it together, I was going to win. Had a few crashes, which didn't help things, but we didn't have too many weak circuits, but I just made too many mistakes this year, and the others kept me on my toes, and I loved that. I was so motivated on the off season, so motivated, like race by race, to keep fighting, keep turning up, and it was right to the end. And even finishing second, I think because I got almost accepted defeat not halfway through the year. When I've done all them crashes in Portugal, I thought, wow, it's done. Not that was why. There was also races before. You can never pinpoint one reason. It's a cumulative,
Yeah.
You lost it over the year, not one weekend. But, when I won both races in Indonesia, lost the championship, I was still pretty happy with my effort, because I couldn't have done much more from an effort point of view. Certainly would have changed a lot of decisions, both I made, the team made maybe during the year to be better, but that's what learning's about, and I think it takes that sort of rivalry from Top Rack, when you've been, I've said it a few times in different interviews, but when we've been the reference for, I think Bautista came different reference because it's so bloody fast.
That beginning of that season, it was just like, here we go.
Like I could work out how to pass him in the brakes or from a long way back or outsmart him or whatever, but couldn't work out how to pass him when he gains like 0.6 on a straight because he's like 50 kilos on a weapon. Where Scott on that bike was a lot heavier. It was okay. I still feel like they had a bit of a advantage on the straights. Top Rack more or less plus or minus from a technical point of view is similar. They just done a little bit better job. But it was like learning. This year we weren't the benchmark anymore. And it gives you something to aim for. Like, why is he so good? How can he actually have that rear wheel in the air so long going into the corner? And when the rear wheel lands, it's not upsetting the front or pushing the front. He's actually able to get the apex in what looks like spectacular, but under control, where, trying to replicate that is, we just put our front in too much crisis from, pushing that landing area of our bikes, not nice. So it's just areas to focus on. It gives us a new target, really.
I was going to say, they're quite nice in some ways to go back, because for so long you're kind of trying to improve on your benchmarks, but is it sort of nice to have that sort of looking at, and like trying to learn things like that other people are doing?
Yeah, definitely. But I think after got Fabian Fori, ex-Supersport World Champion, great mate of mine. I mean, we spent a summer together in Australia. And I think it was after 15 or after 16, I got Fabian on board to come and help me trackside, just to improve. And because it's like, I won that championship in 15, I thought, fuck, now I'm at the top of the tree. Like, the only way is down. So I'm going to do whatever it takes now to stay there. And whether that was rents every penny I had, getting external support to make my life easier, or trackside assistance, or more comfortable, I know my time at the top is going to run out at some point. And Fabian really helped to make my center of gravity in the bike. It was always very high. I was very upright in the bike, quite old school. I would say if I was going to be negative, I would say lazy. But I prefer to use economical on the bike. But yeah, Fab helped me, to lower the center of gravity, be a wee bit more loose on the bike. And then from watching videos, trying to improve again, using my rear brake quite a lot more than I ever used. I never used the rear brake until maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Really?
Only on acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
So on left-handed circuits, I was quite good because I got big, clumsy feet. So trying to get under the lever on a right-hander was a nightmare. So I think 2 years ago, they have what they call now the scooter brake, which means I have both, because I figure on a right-hander, this arm's pretty easy. You can use your rear brake. Your foot doesn't need to be trapped. On left-handers, then this arm's doing a lot of work. So to manage a brake as well is too much. So having the foot brake. So it's okay, it's extra weight, but it works. That's a weird way of riding on it. But a lot of people are using it now. It's quite popular up and down pit lane. So it tends to work.
I remember from your book, I remember you were speaking about your personal sort of team that you take. Like, obviously you've mentioned Fab and Kev, and you saying like, I remember when I was listening to it, I remember thinking it was like a big entourage, not in terms of like the team like thing. It's as in like the team that you take. Is there them too? Is there anyone else that you?
My mate Gaz has been coming the last couple of years, like doing a bit of YouTube. I dipped my toe in the YouTube water. Trying to create a YouTube channel.
I've enjoyed watching some of them.
But I feel like a pleb, honestly. Walking through an airport with, like, if I'm doing it myself, he says, try and do as much as you can. It's like, but I feel like a dick, pulling out my GoPro in an airport. But then when you do it and you get some cool content, it works. But I'm not comfortable with it. I'd be more comfortable if he comes and just a fly on the wall around and he does it all. But he's been my like childhood mate from motocross. And we did quite a few years together when I first started. And he does a lot of high-end work now. He's more like, does really cool move, like moving art, if you like commercials for Kawasaki. Actually, he shoots a lot of their commercials. Does like when journalists goes and test bikes, he's there cutting them some video footage from their day riding around the hills or at the circuit. And but he's a good mate, very keen cyclist as well. I introduced him to cycling, and now he's like addicted. He's actually doing cyclocross nationals tomorrow. It's on Eurosport Player or something. So he's like such an addictive personality. If it's not cycling, it's golf, or it's traveling to superbike races, or it's traveling to motocross races. He just can't balance much. But yeah, he's a good influence. So like together, because it's a lonely place. You know, if I was doing it myself, maybe I'd have ran my batteries out, you know, and decided that's enough's enough. But it's still fun because I've made it fun because I've good people around, not just team. Because when they disappear on, you know, Saturday or Sunday afternoon, I still have like people around, and we try and enjoy it as well. You know, go for nice food if we're in nice places, visit places, and make it cool.
That's one thing. I know when we were at Honda a few weeks ago, and we're talking about, like, say, the two Japanese lads that have came over, and it's, I mean, I guess I'm very lucky that I've always had like sort of family support, or I've, you know, been in and around like my friends and family. But when I have had times, even like as much as a week away, like by myself, like I don't do very well with that.
I'm exactly the same, and it's with my wife. It's the opposite. You know, she would quite happily go to, you know, a solo holiday to Bali with a book and some meditation and yoga and quiet time, you know, and no screen time, where I'm opposite. Like, I can watch a movie, but I need somebody there just in case I want to ask them a question, or I can be in silence, like dead awkward. Like the motorhome, there's not much chat at night times, but I'm just happy people are there. I want them to stay around, not bugger off to the hotel, just so that there's some company.
Aye.
So that's yeah, because it's tough sometimes, and you because in reality it's super nice on a Sunday on TV, and you'll never replace the feeling of crossing the line after a win, and that feeling is amazing. But it vanishes as soon as you get to turn one. But then you sort of get it again, I feel, when you come back to Park Fermin, and you realize, fuck, everyone else is happy. You know, the mechanics are happy, family's happy, you've made a bit of an impact. But quickly after, you realize the show's over. You know, it's not glamorous anymore, because garage decorations are down, trucks are open, people are working at 100 miles an hour to get to a hotel or an airport. And generally it's, you know, tough time this year was, don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but I'll bring it up anyway, was when I had like controversy with the green lines in Magny-Cours. And I had no idea about this. This was all going on in the back office until I'd left the track after race 2 pretty early, because I was getting up to Charles de Gaulle and there's like loads of traffic, and I stopped to fill my car up with fuel and flicked open Instagram on my own. I was seeing all these horrible comments about what had just gone on, but not just like all these. It was like hundreds of shit comments. I was by myself, and I went to a hotel in Charles de Gaulle, and I was thinking, fuck, this is a nasty place to be. I wish I had some more company around. So, and I also always thought that being a tough sport, a dangerous sport, if I got hurt somewhere, was when I got hurt in 13 in Nürburgring. My mate Keith and Moore was with me, but I broke my leg and I was in a hospital, but the team just done one. They were gone.
Just, that's your problem. We've done our job. We're off, kind of thing.
Pretty much. And I'd have been snookered if Keith wasn't there. And he pretty much, his wife and kids were back home with Tars in the Isle of Man. I think she was heavily pregnant with her second kid. And he put his life on hold for me. And he was there, and at that company, like, you can never repay someone for that, because you're at a really, really low point and then someone's got your back. Mm-hmm. But maybe thinking back, maybe the reason I signed for Honda that last year was they weren't there in person, but they reached out and got me a private jet and flew me home straight from that hospital to the Isle of Man to Ronaldsway.
Mm-hmm. Makes a difference.
That was pretty nice. Yeah, well, I signed for them, didn't I? So.
Well, no, it does. So, you know, it's like
so that was super nice. But yeah, I just feel it's always nice to have a bit of company, because it's a tough sport, and I'm pretty open and honest, carrying my heart in my sleeve with all these people around, and they can sense when I'm having a bad day as well, and always there to pick me up.
Let's talk about that situation with the green line. Now that escalated from you whispering like into your man's ear in Park Ferme. Being blunt and being very honest right now, do you regret doing that or
Nah.
No?
No. Do you know, I should have probably stood up, put my big boy pants on and just called it.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I was asking to check because I seen it.
That's...
And there's no grey line in this. Like we're professional racers, you know, we know the rules because we see it in Supersport 300 all the time. It's not drop position. It's not the last lap of a race. The green line is forbidden. It is 100% like a drop of position. So I went and passed him into the next corner, which completely compromised my line because I was going to pass him anyway. Whether I was coming from like 10 meters further back, I wanted to win that race. But because he was so close and I lunged, I compromised my exit and I got him close and he blocked past me into that last unit, into that last little sector. But I really enjoyed the race. And I couldn't really care if the result was overturned. I was reporting what I seen. But yeah, I figured like race direction should have probably had my back a little bit on it and dealt with it before we got to Park Ferme. So I got back to Park Ferme and thought, yeah, that was awesome. But hey, dude, check this because he's on the green, but it's whatever. But bear in mind, we've got a race like 2 hours later, so it was completely parked, and I was focused on the last race of the day, whatever it was. And yeah, it wasn't until my team manager came and told me that they'd seen it from an onboard, and apparently they were already in race direction trying to fight this. So yeah, it was a shame. It's a shame because Top Rack's a good dude. I like him. We get on well. Also, his crew chief Phil Marin lives right here. He's like 15 miles down the road.
I love Northern Ireland. Everyone's close.
So,
it's class, isn't it?
So I've got a real soft spot for them, even though they're big rivals. But like we talked about back when the drop of position came about, there's a lot on the line here. We're gonna. So you think So I feel like I'm a good guy, but I'm competitive, and I'm ruthless. And if I've got to fight for something, I'll fight for it. And I figured when I sat back and Gamer told me he'd been to race direction already, I thought, it's the right thing, because if I lose this championship by 3 points, whatever it was, I kick myself because he was on the green. They would have ruled against me if he wasn't. He was enough on there to get a better exit, and you can prove whatever you like, but rules are rules. You see, and using them tactics. Do I agree with the green line rule? No, probably not. It's a terrible rule. It should be grass. Nobody would use it.
See,
but it's there to be used, and we used it for our advantage. And I got beat in the championship anyway, and they done a better job. The better man won. I congratulate them, and it's funny because talk about social media being a minefield. I had to take myself off it because I hated seeing all these horrible comments. So I didn't delete the apps, but I deleted them off my phone.
Yeah.
So I didn't delete the accounts, but I deleted it off my phone for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I felt I was like way more present at home. Actually, it was a wee bit of rehab away from my social media addiction, to be fair, because I would just scroll for the sake of scrolling. But the funny thing is wholeheartedly, I was happy for Top Rack at the end to be champion. It was a perfect story for me as well. I won the race and I got back to Park Ferme, and the first person I congratulated when he came in was him. There's a cool picture. I think I put it on my Instagram afterwards of I gave him a hug. Holy hell, the comments of me being a gentleman, a sportsman, amazing guy, all this, like, what a great rivalry. It's like, yeah, but 3 months ago you were throwing me under the bus. You know what I mean? You threw me to the lions. These same people thinking. So it was a bit like you try and forget about that background noise, and I've tried to stop reading comments and stuff. Grow on a set. If you've got an opinion, I try not to be so opinionated about things. If I'm asked a question, I'll try and give an open and honest answer. But I find in life in general, if you're very opinionated, you're going to annoy somebody, and but you got to realize you can't please everyone. But if you can stand up for what you believe in and stand by it, then you'll do no wrong, if you like. So that whole episode was not nice, but I learned a bit about myself as well.
See, for me, it wasn't like you just got in the front of the microphone and spat your dummy out. Far from it.
Didn't want to do that.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And that's my point here.
But then there's a lot would say I should have done that.
Nah, but
because I've done it in a devious way, which
no,
I was like happy with the race, but it's like, look into this. It wasn't like, this needs to happen and that needs to happen and this is a disaster.
You pulled in, you had a word with your man, and I'm not being funny, every racer would have said the same thing. Not say you just said he was on the green, check that. It's simple. I would have done the same. If you were in that situation, you would have come in and gone, you know what, he was on the green. Yeah, and you leave that up to the race control. I totally agree with you, and you hit the nail on the head. And Chrissy's been saying this from day dot, since the track limitations. It should be with like grass or AstroTurf or something that actually slows the bike down.
Because there's a lot in World Championship, and it is to be safer. And cars don't like gravel because they're always in the green, and gravel goes everywhere.
No one likes cars anyway, so it's actually.
But I got like a lot of flack over it, but I remember a lot of, especially it made me question other people and their mentalities, like competitive people that jumped on the bandwagon. Well, I wouldn't do that. Well, I thought, you wouldn't do that? And you call yourself like
you're there,
a world championship team manager or a next world champion, and you wouldn't have done that? Really?
Welcome to motorcycle racing.
Like, this is not the County Antrim Barley Stubble Championship, where you elbow your mates through the roof and he goes on to the next corner.
Yeah.
It's a world championship, so it's like we play by the rules. It's a shit rule, but
it's a rule not.
I didn't break the rules.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about this. Do you know the sort of autistic side of, or like autistic spectrum of motorbike races? And I think even going back to, I don't know if this is just a motorbike thing or but do you know, like say at school, like say with the thing I used to like about maths is it was either right or wrong, and there's like a definite thing, and like any sort of subject, any subjects that were like a grey area. We've spoke about this the green thing, and there is no argument like it, and whether it's a millimeter or 3 millimeters, it's
give an inch, give a mile. It's a game of tolerances.
But like we said, if it was just something less grippy than tarmac, then job sorted. Yeah. But I tell you what, let's switch conversations to of the 6 World Championships that you've won. Do you know when you cross the line to like wrap up the championship, what's the single best feeling that you've had out of them 6?
Don't know.
There's a fair few.
I mean,
Magnicur 17.
What number was that out of the
3?
Right, and was that
because the first one was my best World Championship because it's my first, and it sort of gives you a lot of pressure off. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible. Nice journey, nice story, new team. The second was a really tough battle. I mean, Chaz like completely smoked me at the end of the year, and so I just got that championship, maybe 50 points or something like that. Was but enough, but he was coming. But the third one, but I'd never won the race that I won the championship. And remember Magnicur, I was going into Magnicur, and I knew I was going to win in Magnicur. So they'd organised like a big homecoming week at home, and we got a jet straight from Magnicur on Sunday night to Belfast. And I was still living in the Isle of Man then, but we stayed the week doing media runs. It was like an incredible experience. But I won on the Saturday, won the championship. So you feel it's incredible. I talked about Neil Hodgson with this, and he said it was sucked winning a championship but not winning the race. And I won a wet race by miles. It was, and anything can happen in a wet race, but I put my head down and won it, and it was the best feeling ever because you've won a race, you've won a championship, and it's a big deal. The first one was the worst feeling when I crossed the line, but after I got over it pretty quick.
Why was that?
It was the first time of the whole season I was off the podium. So here's me, world champion, and like I was one of these kids, not like manifest stuff or whatever, but I'd pictured what my championship party would be like, and I read books and stories about what Colin Edwards did or all these people. So I'd seen this, and I was like, when it happened, I was like, it's like doesn't feel like what I thought it would be. I came back to Parc Fermé and I was like a token gesture in Parc Fermé because I wasn't on the podium. Then they had the real podium and I was like the world champion afterthought that came out after. In the background on the start line there was the European Superstock race just leaving the grid in the warm-up lap. Like I just wished this was like I'd wanted this to be better for me, to be fair. Because I'd got beat really bad and it was a tough race for me. And I didn't see the big picture, you know, that's that mental side we're talking about earlier, you know, it's, you know, I like things to be the way they should be and it wasn't that day. So I was actually quite a grumpy world champion for a minute or two, but I just couldn't see the big picture. And then I did, and it was when I got back home and realised it was a big deal. I think the biggest, what sunk in then when you get invited to that FIM Awards full of, like the Supercross champion from the US comes, like MotoGP world champions, Enduro, Speedway, in like motocross, everything. It was, and so you're in a room full of like really talented world champions that I look up to, you know, and then I'm like, whoa, this is actually quite a big deal, and it sunk in then.
Amazing. And do you know, out of all, I mean, looking through all your records, like pretty much broken everything. Is there any superbike records that you're aiming to break, or have you pretty much broken everything?
No, not really. I think the only thing probably left would have, I've thought about like Superpole, because Tom's Mr. Superpole, but he's like so far out of reach. You know, he was pretty special. Yeah, I don't know like stats, but it was never in the stats, but I think that would have been cool,
because that has been something qualifying this year especially has been some like a massive strength of yours.
Yeah, but you know it was like so weak for Top Rack like in previous years, and he's got that together now. He's been on pole. He's been strong.
There's been a couple of times I've been watching this year, and obviously the way it works with the tyre choices and like the Q1, Q2 and all that type of stuff, it basically comes down to like that last 5 minutes where everyone, and I remember, I think it might have been Maknico or something like that, and I was watching and everyone's sort of pitted and you were like 7th at the time, and then the clock was running down and it got to like 3 minutes and you kept going to your garage and you just kind of like sat there, and I was just thinking like, come on, like what's the problem type of thing. And then you literally went out with, you must have just came across the line with like seconds
Perfect
to go.
Timing.
Put a perfect lap, smashed the lap record, pole position, and I'm just thinking like, how on earth?
No, I think
surely you put yourself under so much pressure leaving it that late, but like you clearly like have it absolutely nailed.
Yeah, so my memory is not great, but I think we did have a problem with something then, like shifting so I was in and out. I never really got a clean lap. I was in and out of the pits most of that session, maybe. Rings a bell, because normally I'm conservative. I want to be, because there's that rule now that when a yellow flag's out, the lap is cancelled straight away, and that caught me out in Argentina. Never got a good lap in Argentina. I was qualified in the second row, maybe. Then it was this year. But so I always try, and my strategy now is let the busyness go. Normally I was always trying to go out first, but now there's always a few guys really looking for toes, and some of them can actually spoil your lap, and I like clear track, so I'll let a bit of the mess go and then clear track, come in and go straight back out again, because generally the others will wait to the last 6 minutes, but I don't want to get caught on their out lap either, so my team time it that I'll do an early lap, but then you set the benchmark, so when the guy crosses the line to open his line, he's got your lap time on his pit board and stuff. But I figure if I can go as fast as I can and I can be happy with a lap, wouldn't matter if someone told me somebody's 2/10 fast. I've done the best you can, so the benchmark doesn't really matter.
You did have loads of poles this year though, didn't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think at the latter part of the year, not really, no.
But across the season,
probably
definitely the highest in the championship.
Because I got the Superpole. The Superpole award used to be like a load of money, but they've stopped paying it.
Really?
Yeah, I used to get decent prize money as well. It used to be like 3 or like 4,2,1,000 euros, like 4,000 for a race win, 2,000 per second, 1 for third, and from the organisers, and that's
got
all
rid of
gone.
it.
Now you get an award for the most passes. So it encourages like full Mario Kart.
That's a mint idea.
And then
That's a mint
and
idea.
that's the Hyundai award. You get a car for that. You get
Across the season?
yeah.
Right. Who got that this year?
Who's got a Hyundai on the drive right now?
And you get, I think, best independent rider gets 1,500 quid.
Right.
We used to do well. I used to get money for best lap, podium, and then at the end of the year, the Super Pole award was like decent money from Pirelli, but they stopped all that.
Do you know across the whole
Skimping and saving.
across the whole international scene, which country has the biggest, like which track do you get the biggest live crowd?
It's a good one. Don't really know. I think Buriram, Thailand, first year we went there was mental. It was absolutely mental. I remember a super sport Thai rider being on the track, and there's only a grandstand on the home straight and a little bit on the next straight, but it was jam packed. You couldn't get a seat. It was like being at a football stadium. Then where else? I mean, Portugal's. You could put 100,000 in Portugal and it still look like there's 10 people there because
Really?
it's built for F1. You know,
The
there's-
grandstands like this, everywhere.
it's nuts. Imola, you always felt like, because the paddock's so busy and condensed, you always felt like there's a big crowd at Imola, but we don't go there anymore.
Is there any track that you wish was on the world calendar?
Mugello. Everyone says, I've never rode it, but everyone says Mugello is amazing. I wish Imola was back on it because of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Got a soft spot for like the Italians. They're like passionate people, you know. There's always cool vibe when you go to Italy to race.
If you could take a circuit off the calendar.
Most in Czech Republic.
Right.
Right?
Why is that?
It went on last year, but just I think they're going to invest a bit and change certain aspects of the track. But we've been spoiled for World Championship tracks like for years and years and years, and competing with MotoGP, people are happy to pay the money to stage an event, but Superbike doesn't grab the crowd. So these big circuits are like it's not business anymore. So we have to go where we can go, really. And I understand that, but like Moss, firstly, wasn't amazing there. The first sector is like so bumpy, ridiculously bumpy. And they just need to do a few things there's a few areas where you go off, it's not going to be very nice. So not a big fan of that. And what else? I'm pretty happy. I love Jerez, and it's an amazing circuit. But I've never been super good there. I've always been.
Is that why you like it a bit more?
I've always been like thumped there, but it's off the calendar.
Is it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
and I think Navarra, we went there last year. That's not on the calendar yet. Maybe it's could be a stand-in race. I think they're still trying to find one more. But you're pretty happy. Jerez and Navarra aren't on there.
Do you know? I think we touched maybe briefly upon it about the MotoGP opportunity that you had years ago on the Repsol bike, and two races was something like 6th and 7th.
Yeah, no, 7th and 8th, 8th and 7th,
which is hellish. For your first time on it. Did that live up to? So obviously, you would have had some sort of expectation of what the bike was going to be like and the competition and all that sort of stuff. Did the whole experience live up to what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, and more.
Really?
To be honest, yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed more. I think I'm the only probably MotoGP rider that put weight on during a race weekend in history because hospitality was fantastic. It was like 5-star.
Me and Chrissy are waiting for the technical
It was like
advantage. Yeah.
Michelin star level food, and I was like just filled my boots. But and the people, like the staff and the team, were all really nice. I learned quite a bit. It was back when the BBC covered GP, so like it felt like quite a British paddock as well. Where Superbikes, apart from some British teams and riders, it's pretty much Spanish. So that was cool. And I just fanboyed the bike. Like I remember literally I did a test as well in Brno, but I remember staring down the back of the bike before you would go out and thinking, I always thought, if I crashed my 10K bike and I always feel guilty when I crash. But if it was stupidity and I felt like offering to pay for some bits, you could probably sell a car or a house and help the team out. Where this thing's worth more than I was. You know, like honestly, it was unreal looking at it. So I was intimidated by the bike a little bit. I was intimidated by the tires because in between sessions you'd get changed and they would just play like a crash compilation. It's like watching like Bike Havoc in between the sessions, all these off throttle high sides. I was watching this getting changed, thinking, "Oh, I've got to go and ride this thing," you know.
What a fun play.
So, but yeah, it was good. It was good. I didn't. The biggest thing wasn't the power, wasn't the people talk about the carbon brakes. It was just the tires. They're so different. Like to make the bridge, it was Bridgestone back then. To make the Bridgestone work, you had to really squeeze it and deform it going into the corner. So like your crew chief's telling you, we need so many bar of pressure more and 2 degrees more angle. Well, the Pirelli head would tell you, well, you'll crash. You know, you're going to crash. Where that's the way you need it to ride. So I think with more time, I would have just got it a bit more. And I was told just sort of look after the bike. Don't be in the rev limiter too much. We've got these engines.
Really?
Please don't crash it.
Yeah, that's not good.
Just
going in a race.
You enjoy this experience. Where I wanted to go and be like, this put you in the shop window, son. You do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And considering...
But I probably should have done that. You know, when Jake Dixon got his chance and Alex Lowe's as well at Tech 3. I remember speaking to them a little bit and said, listen, grab the bull by the horns here. This, if you do good, it'll be
changing.
It could be changing, you know, because all it takes is the right guy to believe in you then and you've got a deal. Where, you know, by then all the Honda seats were like sewing up. I think I raced with Bautista the whole way around Aragon when I was 7th. But the previous weekend, he'd finished 3rd in Misano. And the sponsors of that Go and Fun that sponsored the Grassini team were there and they got super excited. And they're like, yeah, we have to sign this guy for next year. And that seat was then gone. And the Stefan Bradl seat at LCR was always came with a lot of like German Honda influence. So yeah, I was sort of like out of the loop anyways.
Do you, looking back, do you slightly regret not being as conservative? Yeah, being as conservative.
Maybe.
But you could say that. But then if
maybe,
on the flip side,
also,
you could have went.
I don't know how much better I could have done because I was still like trying to work out the tires. So you couldn't bite the screen too much more. And the thing I got it with GP bikes was they all ride. They're all very good riders and they don't make mistakes. So if you make one little mistake, it's not like we can get back on because the Pirellis you ride in a different way. You know, you can make the differences subtly where this tire is built to ride in a certain way and everyone rides that way. If you make a mistake, you're off the group and they're all very good so you don't catch them. So like I made a few mistakes at times and you think your superbike head was like, oh, don't worry, you'll catch them. But then the next lap you come round, the gap's the same. The next lap you come round, the gap's the same, you know, and you don't really make headway. So
do you think Top Rack's going to go MotoGP?
I hope so. Not for me, by the way. Not for me. For him and for Superbike, because he's talented. And I mean, I've really disproved that there's a stepping stone there. You know, I've had people say I've had opportunities in the past and I've turned them down. I have never had a contract. There's always been talk. I've always tried, or my manager spoke, or whatever. But I mean, the closest I got going was I had some talks with Aprilia, but never like, here, this is what the deal is, and do you want to sign it? So I really hope for him. I spoke to him actually before the Mountain Crew weekend. We finished the track walk together, and we're talking about that. And then Barcelona weekend, straight after Mountain Crew, after all the drama, we were talking about him and MotoGP because that's when there's a lot of rumors. I said, like, you should go because he's talented enough. And there's a lot of guys in Superbike that are really talented, and given the right opportunities, there's a lot of guys in BSB that are super talented. Given time and energy and opportunity, they could do good. But I hope he doesn't get pigeonholed as a Superbike rider because, you know, there's especially this new craze now of young riders in GP. You know, he could fit in right with all of them when it's so unpredictable. Also for his country, because they've hero worshipped Keenan Softwoglu for years as a world supersport champion. But for me, like, Top Rack's the real deal. He could
get in there.
Definitely fight at the top of MotoGP.
Fingers crossed. It'd be great to see, wouldn't it? If they got rid Oh, before you do have your strength test here,
Of course.
if they got rid of the World Superbike paddock, got rid of it, what would you do? Where would you go?
I would probably put my entry in for the Irish Motocross Championship.
Really?
Yeah, Louis Van.
I've heard you're a proper weapon on a motocross bike, mate. I've heard some.
Don't know.
I've heard some wicked things about
I
you.
was good I was good as a schoolboy. Crashed too much.
That's what it's about,
I
isn't
was
it?
one of these that crashed, still believed they would win, and then crash again, and couldn't really.
Do you still do quite a bit of motocross training?
Yeah, do quite a bit of training. Yeah, but then there's parts of my year where I get really nervous and park the bike.
Just for the injury.
But generally, generally, I love it.
I've just got a little question from one of our patrons. I'll just play it on here.
Jonathan, you're right. Chrissy and Dom, hope you're all right as well. My question for you, Johnny, is would you consider swapping teams to a different manufacturer and winning the title on a different bike, or are you happy with Kawasaki and will you retire with them? Cheers.
Oh, hey.
Good question, now, like putting you on the spot there, is it?
Cheers, buddy. Cheers for your question.
Wait, let's just say if Kawasaki wasn't available.
Firstly, I'm super happy at Kawasaki.
Nicely recovered.
Yeah. No, but they give me my chance to win a world title. But you also never know what's going to happen in the future. Like we talked about racers, you can never pick your career path or opportunities, and maybe something will come that will light my fire. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll walk away. Maybe I will retire with Kawasaki. I just don't know now. But I've got a great home there, and I hope I can finish my journey there because it's a really nice story.
Yeah.
And I've made lifelong friends in that team.
It's been difficult this year with obviously from the championships point of view, they're trying to even it up all the time, and in terms of like make it for the entertainment side of things. But from your side of things, and it's happened a few times where Kawasaki have brought new things to the table. I remember one year that you literally got to round one, and like at the last minute, you got like something taken off you, which you were expecting to be able to use. This year, it's been quite obvious watching on the TV that you've had a massive disadvantage on the straight, and that's then obviously meant that you've had to push very hard in the corners, which is like you can see how hard you're riding the bike, and the front kept folding, and it's you like definitely look like you're getting the best out of it. It's so difficult from the organizers' point of view, because obviously if they then just give you your revs back and you start winning, then it's almost like they're controlling who. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But do you feel like they've got the rules? I presume you feel like you're at a disadvantage at the moment.
A bit because of just the speed thing, and the RPMs, and I actually feel a bit like Kawasaki took one on the nuts, because you know how difficult it is to homologate a new bike on a production line and put new pistons in it, change the engine, aerodynamics, and re-homologate a bike. It's not a few quid to do that, and they've done that quite a few years because they're invested in Superbike, unlike GP, like other manufacturers. So fair play to them to do it. Their standard bike revs much harder than the previous one. But yeah, for lack of communication, wherever it may be, it wasn't deemed as much I'm not sure the technical rules or whatever. I'm sure someone will point it out now after this podcast and tell me. But it wasn't deemed as that new a bike to give this dispensation to, if you like. But there's also like an algorithm built into apparently the timing screens and speed traps and sector times, whatever, that should give you balance, because sometimes manufacturers have been deducted. I remember Ducati got 250 RPM off them when Bautista was on it, which definitely still wasn't enough. But then in saying that, I'm sure Scott would have liked them 250 RPM because he was much heavier, than Bautista. So swings and roundabouts. But there's apparently a balancing algorithm. But I felt like it didn't really take a rocket scientist to watch from the naked eye, especially in tracks like Navarra this year, which had a first gear or like a first corner, sixth gear, where you're in the limiter quite a bit. So our bike was quite overgeared, and we really lost so much the extra that first gear last corner the whole way up that hill down the straight. But it is what it is. I'm sure if you give us 500 RPM, you could probably give Yamaha more freedom to do something with their chassis. You could probably give Ducati more freedom to do. So it's like all these manufacturers have to agree. So you can't give something without giving the rest. And I think if I try and put my neutral head on it and be a fan, it's good. Racing's been good. I can accept it, but it's pretty tough when you're using all your bullets around the corner and you get to the straight and you're empty every time, because it's always a free pass when you've got the same power or a little bit more is always nice, you know. I enjoyed that when I fought with Chaz. You know, some years the bike was a wee bit faster than a Ducati. Ducati did some things good. It managed the tire better in some tracks, and but now this year we've struggled in that area. But I feel like this is not a moan at all, because I feel like we offset that because we're stronger in some other areas. Our bike changes direction better. I feel it accelerates good. We can maintain the tire as good or better than the rivals. So we can use the soft tire and make it last. We can make the hard tire go fast, where the others, when they can't use the hard tire because they can't make it work. So I think as an overall package, we're quite good. But if I could have something, if Santa could have delivered me a few more horsepower, that would have been super nice.
When do all the rules get sorted for like this year?
I think they're fixed. Like, it is what it is. I think I'm not sure how it is. I think we've got something, because we tested it with something a bit different in the engine that was good. You know, I feel like the Kawas, but the rules are rules, so it's not a lot of freedom.
Aye.
So it was just something quite small from a chassis point of view and an electronic point of view. We've made some big steps forward. So we can't always just focus on one area. It's about making it all good and making the bike easier to ride.
Sure.
Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, we've got a little. Well, we introduced this a few weeks ago. So basically,
let's get the competitive nature back.
A scales game. So basically, you just hold it out in front of you like this, and then just squeeze like that as hard as you can.
10 and a bit stone.
And leaderboard.
Have you put this on 0?
No, it does actually need me.
Just you make sure it's 0.
You see, look at that.
Give me a bit more if you can.
Yeah, it's on 0 there. Right, if you do straight arms, and then
here we go.
Yeah, you get 2 goals. So have a practice go.
Jeez,
that's good. That was over 12. That's strong.
That was a straight out 12. That was nice.
13.5's the highest.
Can I ask for a tip before I blow my head? Do you put your thumbs at the back of it, or do you
get your palms behind you?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. Just whatever you think.
I've got more pressure here than a race.
Right. Oh, a video or two.
You're going to have to video it. So now we're going to video it. So it's really on.
Do you get a prize?
We've just got a leaderboard, so it's
big Rolex. It's massive. Yeah.
Like a Rolex chocolate or something.
It could be anything you want, mate. If you top this shot,
right, we're recording. So go on.
So what is it to beat?
13.5 is the highest.
Was this a rider?
Hickman and Brad Howell both got 13.5.
He's got some leverage.
Got big hand. Hickman must have some big old hands, eh? Big lad.
He's got some power, but he'll be watching this like a hawk now. Come on, let's go.
I'm coming for you, Pete.
Straight arms, squeeze, man. Don't be shy.
Straight arms.
Come on.
Do you know what? I think you got over 13 there.
I think I put my shoulder on it.
Yeah, Kawasaki, if you're watching this, sorry, we've just knocked your rider.
Do you know what? I think you might have got 13.6.
I think that's 35.
You definitely got...
Are you going slow-mo?
6? That's a 6.
I will actually give you that, you know.
That is 100.
Really?
That is
slightly over 13.5. I think you're 13.
Let me see the evidence.
That is, he's topped it.
Oh.
And we have this for video evidence.
In your face!
Hickman will be screaming to be on the pod now again. They'll be out
Yeah, but you have to come back now. If someone beats it, you have to come back. I'm going to my coach in the mornings to I need shoulders.
Your gym in the living room would be like, just get rid of all that gear. Just need a set of weights.
Take them sofas out. I need a rig in here.
So get on with it. But no, honestly, but have we got any more questions, my man?
We haven't got time for all the Patreon questions because we've literally got loads. But I'll have a quick flick through and see what.
It's a shame you're not in England because we're like trying to cram everything in on this Northern Irish tour. Yeah, so class crack, man.
Well, those that I haven't sent to sleep, thanks for staying tuned.
That one's a good one. Andrew Jones, who's been your toughest opponent over a championship in your career?
Well, I've been top rat this year because it was like down to the last race.
Yeah.
Um,
That was good.
but toughest rival, I'd have to say Chaz.
Mhm.
As a career rival so far.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you know, there was a little bit of heat towards between Top Rack and Redden. There was a race. Do you know when Redden wanted to propose to his missus?
yeah.
And Top Rack sat him up going into a corner, and it was
Hey, that took some balls, by the way.
what the proposal.
Yeah.
Doing.
Yeah, but I felt as awkward as hell.
What?
I was on
Were
the
you
podium when that happened. I was like, what's happening? Surely not. Really? It's like some big balls getting down on one knee in front of
All that, yeah.
everyone.
A fair few thousand people watching. What was your take on the sort of? Did you feel like Top Rack was being overly aggressive, or do you think Redden was complaining too much, or?
It's, there's no right answer to that because Top Racks is aggressive
Mhm.
on the line. He knows the line, and he's completely in control of what he's doing. So he's not reckless,
Mhm.
but there's sometimes because I've been nudged a few times. I'm not complaining, but sometimes there's a rider that's also on their limit on the outside of you or whatever, and I don't think there's a thought goes into his head about that. But he hasn't put anyone down. It was a very hard move. It was the last lap of the race. I'd have probably done the same.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Mhm.
I mean, the door wasn't open, but it doesn't need to be open when he's behind you. You know, you just so.
Mhm.
But I don't. I think what you just mentioned about this planned proposal was maybe in the head a few laps before, and then emotions ran high. Maybe apart from it, maybe it wasn't the right timing, but and complaining does you no good. You know, I've realised that I've moaned a bit in the past, and it's not good. So I'm sure he's learned, but yeah, it's on the line. Let's say not over.
Fair enough. Great question, Craig Arnold. Would you ever consider a return to BSB, like say after
No,
will you retire in World Superbikes?
I'd hope to.
Yeah.
But do you know why? For why? Because the level's high, and I don't think I would want it as much. But depends. You never know your headspace, do you? But I'd be worried coming back. Wouldn't be my fairy tale to come back on a rainy knock hill and getting pummeled by like half the field because my heart wasn't in it. So
Well, you've got an Irish Motocross Championship to win
Yeah.
after that, so you've got a
yeah,
lot on
I've
your
got
plate.
my
So
kids as well, so I'll probably have to. I'll dedicate a lot of time. They're little football kids, so
there we
I'll
are.
be a sideline dad.
Kick it on here.
We've got to, but just let you know, there's lots of people congratulating you on your OBE and just a lot of people just thanking you for everything. Like it had a lot of enjoyment from watching you from you. So
Thanks.
you've got a lot of fans on our Patreon page. We'll finish with this one. So Peter Buchanan, he said, "Is there anything left on your motorcycle bucket list?"
Oh.
I like the idea of a 24-hour race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've done a bit of this.
Done Suzuki 8-hour race and won that
Mm.
twice now. But I like the idea of it, but even an 8-hour race after the first hour, I'm like, well, why did I agree to do this again? You know?
You're going to have to go to Spa, 24-hour.
But I've always done the 8-hour with 2 riders,
Mhm.
where 24 hours with 3, so you'd get 2 hours off.
Mhm.
But of course, you have to ride more. But I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be definitely cool.
Was there not a year where Haslam's teammate had a problem and he did like 6 hours by himself or something? Or like,
Leon-
Jesus.
Leon never did 6. Maybe he did it not in a row, but he did. I think he did a lot one year. Like he definitely overcompensated. Maybe he did 6. I don't know.
I just
If
remember
that's Leon's story, let him run with it.
No, I just remember him coming back one time and being like absolutely like either his teammate injured themselves or couldn't ride or whatever, and he had to do like a massive.
I think that was the year I DNF'd that year. Don't know how. Maybe a teammate crashed Akiyoshi maybe, or forget what happened, but we ended up all down in the dumps. But I ended up at Haslam's team's party. That Musashi something, like a white and red bike. And Leon was so dehydrated from the race. But we like got on the old like Japanese drinks. And
Oh, the sake. Get that down your son.
yeah, everyone was like singing and karaoke. It was pretty epic. Yeah, Suzuka's a cool one. If you're a motorcycle fan, it's a bucket list thing to go and see.
Really?
Yeah, closest thing to be dropped on another planet, right enough. Like, it's quite different. But just with road signage and people, like, you go to Italy or Spain, you can get by in broken English or order yourself a sandwich. But you go to Japan and
Different story.
like, you want someone to help you out. It'd be a daunting experience, but wow, like, it's packed. Like, I can't imagine MotoGP races being more packed. It's it's a pretty cool event.
We'll put it on the list. We'll definitely put it on the list. But there
You
we
could go and race it.
I want to desperately. I would.
Yeah.
I want to race everything, mate. I want to race absolutely everything. But honestly, thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely great. And no, I can't.
And obviously, best of luck going into next year's championship. Well, this year now, and we'll be rooting for you. All the best, and thanks again for taking us out for lunch to start with, and then a nice to catch up on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to repay the favour. He's looking at us.
Next
going,
time
next time
you're in
it's on YouTube. There you go.
Well, yeah. No, thank you very much, and good luck to yourselves as well this year.
Thank you very much. And a huge thank you to our sponsors, Colchester Kawasaki, and to our patrons. And we'll catch up on our next tour of Northern Ireland sometime soon. So thank you very much and take care.
Cheers, mate. See you in a bit.
Click, buy, deliver with remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.